thing is, which amazes me, is the progress that Miami had in these 2 years, and it's become a better ecosystem for startups and a better city in terms of going out. And you know, Miami was always a great city, the beaches, the sun, everything is so energetic, but it became even better, which is amazing.
I think that in Miami there are great opportunities for startups, penetrate Latin America with new technologies, to raise capital. And from what I met, people here are very much creative and innovative. So I can see a great future. I'm coming from Tel Aviv, a crazy ecosystem of startupists. I believe it can be done in Miami as well.
Welcome to Startup Nation 2018.
I want to welcome you to the 2018 Startup Nation Conference. Each of you received this book, The Startup Nation, which chronicles Israel's rise as an economic powerhouse. This book is the inspiration behind this conference. This is the second Startup Nation conference. And for this year's conference, we're extremely excited to have 3 tracks: artificial intelligence, augmented virtual reality, and cybersecurity. And we have an amazing lineup of speakers. You've gotten to know many of them. Many of them are seated here in the front, both from Israel as well as here in South Florida, startups that are doing amazing work in all 3 areas. But before we start with this lineup, I want to acknowledge our conference sponsor, our co-partner, I should say, for putting this conference together, Tau Ventures of Tel Aviv University. And I want to invite Nimrod Cohen, managing partner from Tau Ventures, who's going to share a few words with you.
Hi everyone, good morning. Thanks for having me for a second time. I know we're short of time, but I have to start with a really short story. I was invited a couple of years ago to this conference in Europe, and when I got on stage, I noticed there is only one guy at the audience. So I was like, well, if it's only the 2 of us, we don't need the slides, right? Let's go have a beer or something and talk about the subject. And he was like, well, I'd like to, but I'm the next speaker. So, so I'm happy to see all of you here. So that's the second time. I'm happy to see how this conference grows, how the Miami ecosystem grows, and how the collaboration between Israel and Miami are getting better and better. I'm the managing partner of Tau Ventures. It's a Tel Aviv University venture capital fund. People still ask me, what is it about Israel? What is it about Miami? What brings you here? So I'll try to answer those questions in the 3 minutes that I have. Since you're here, I'm sure I don't need to convince you why Israel is such a great place, and I'm sure you're familiar with the statistics, like how Tel Aviv is the number 2 innovative city in the world, how Israel has the most listed companies on NASDAQ after the US and China, and so on and so on. There are many multinationals that have offices in the US and in only one other place in the world, which is Israel. If you're going to see the venture capital confidence all over the world, you're going to find out that Israel listed second in the world, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. There are many reasons for that. I decided to point out one specific subject that I think would be kind of surprised. I think that the fact that Israel is such a small country and supposed to be a disadvantage, we made it an advantage. So how come? Let's try to think of, I don't know, an entrepreneur from Germany, for example. Most of them start their startups and they're aiming to the local market. So they brand their startup as a local one with the local URL, the local go-to-market, and so on and so on. After a couple of years, they got their market share, everything looks okay, but they want to become like a huge company, they need to be global. It's very hard for a company to go global after they establish their product or service or whatever locally, and then to change it. It's very hard to do that. In Israel, there is no way you're going to see an Israeli startup aiming to the Israeli market. There's no way you're going to see a PowerPoint in Hebrew. even if an entrepreneur, Israeli entrepreneur, comes to me as an investor, that's only the two of us in the room, right? We speak Hebrew. The presentation will be in English. And as I see it, it's a real advantage. That's why Israel is such a small country. I think that's one of the reasons. I mean, obviously there are many other reasons. That's one of the reasons why, although we are small, we're getting to nice achievements. So why Tel Aviv University? What's so special about Tel Aviv University? Again, I can talk about it for hours. But I'm not sure if you're familiar with this amazing statistics that 50% of the Israeli entrepreneurs are related to the Tel Aviv University. The profile of Israeli entrepreneur is a 36 years old graduate from Tel Aviv University. And if you're going to check, this is pitch book, if you're going to check the background of the alumni of all the VC backed, okay, how much money they raised, you're going to find out that Tel Aviv alumni ranked 9th in the world and first outside the US, which again is kind of impressive. And why Miami? I mean, that's an easy one, right? Again, there's tons of reasons, but if I have to address some of it, it's fast-growing startups ecosystem. I think it's the fastest, right, in the US, right? Available capital, looking for opportunities. Bridge to Latin America. This is something unique. You come to the US, but it's not only the US market. Through the US, you can get to Latin America, which again is a huge market, and competitive advantage. For Israeli startups, if they go to the Silicon Valley or to New York, it's not easy. It's very hard because they need to compete with startups from Europe, with startups from the US, and so on and so on. I'm not sure that startups from the Silicon Valley come to Miami, or startups from Berlin or London, they come to Miami. And again, I don't see any reason why not come to Miami. So Israel is, I think that because of what we do here, that's part of the reason why we're here, to make them understand that it makes sense to come to Miami, even more sense than to go to the Silicon Valley or to New York or other places. And why Startup Nation Conference? So first, it's going to bring you luck. Last time I was here, I was with one of my portfolio companies, Imagine, introduced them to some of those faces here, and now they should disappear. Because I introduced them, they consider investing, they didn't, and after 6 months, this company was acquired by the Snapchat. So think fast and act faster. But seriously, I think it's very hard for Israeli entrepreneurs just to come to Miami and then to know what's going on and to try to do everything by themselves. This is a unique opportunity in 2 days for the local ecosystem and for the Israeli entrepreneurs and the ecosystem to get together, share experience, help each other. And again, this is a unique opportunity, and I think that it's very important to continue this collaboration and to do it at least once a year. And I hope to see most of you in Israel, and then actually all of us to create a real bridge between Israel and Miami. That's it. I'm right on time, right? Thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoy the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Nimrod.
Thank you.
And he's right. Indeed, you don't know what could come out of a conference like this, whether it's an acquisition by Snapchat or an investment. So for all the startups that are here, we appreciate that you're committed your time to be able to come to Miami. And also the ones that are here locally. Obviously, it's really, really important that we put together a conference that allows you to be able to not just share your story, but then hopefully also gain benefit from it. So now I want to bring up one of our other key partners for this conference, both from the first conference to now, and that is the government of Israel. And we have 2 representatives from the government of Israel that are going to speak to you today. I want to first bring to our stage Israel's Consul General to Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, and Puerto Rico, Mr. Lior Hayat. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Shalom, everyone. It's a huge pleasure to be here, and actually it's a dream come true. I always wanted to talk with this kind of a mic. So I've accomplished my dreams today, but I really wanted to thank all the partners that organized this event, because if I can imagine what the Consulate of Israel's main job is to do, is to organize conferences like this. We're talking about building bridges. And this conference is one of the solidest bridges we have between Israel and South Florida. I used to say that Israel and Miami Miami is the closest place to Israel in the U.S. I was told by my deputy that geographically speaking, that's not the truth. But it doesn't matter because actually, if you're looking at Miami, Miami is so close to Tel Aviv in so many ways that geography has nothing to do with it. We're talking about technology, Israeli technology. And actually, I saw that when you entered, each and every one of you got this book. We consider this the Bible. Not because of what's reading in it, because it was written so long ago, and most of it is also almost irrelevant, because this explained the phenomena of 10 years ago. Israel has grown up so much, and the Israeli technology has grown up so much since then, that we are no longer talking about how come Israel became the startup nation. We're talking about two other issues. How can you learn from the Israeli experience? And how can the Israeli experience or the Israeli startup can change the world? And I'm very proud to say that Israeli technology is part of the life of each and every one of you, but it's also part of the life of people in third world countries. We bring water to Africa and South America. We bring health, we bring life to people. Even in the Middle East, even people that don't want Israeli technology, they rely on it, and they have that Israeli technology saving their life day after day. So this is what we call in Judaism tikkun olam, making the world a better place, repairing the world. And if it's true startup, that's even better. And I'll take 1 minute that I have to thank our partners. First of all, the Miami-Dade College is always a pleasure to be here. It feels like a natural place for the Israeli consulate to be in. I want to thank AJC and the Nye Foundation and all the rest of the people that worked here to make this a successful event. And the last one, I want to thank Tel Aviv University. As you heard, you have to be, the profile of the Israeli startup is alumni from Tel Aviv University, 30 years old. I'm a bit older, that's why I'm not in startup, and I have nothing to do with technology. But this Tel Aviv University, their way they create innovation, the way they give those tools is the motor of the Israeli economy today, and I'm so proud to be part of it, and I'm so proud to be an alum. Thank you so much all for coming, and בהצלחה. Good luck.
Now I want to introduce to you the Economic Minister to North America, representing the Ministry of Economy and Industry for Israel, Mr. Inon Elroy.
Actually, I think it's a great moment to thank to Nimrod, because it has been for several years that I keep asking myself, how come me, from everybody, I'm not an entrepreneur, and how come I'm not in this party? Because it's a little bit frustrating to see all these guys, they make exits and they have these great ideas and they just, whatever, they never have a suit and whatever. So I'm not a graduate of the Tel Aviv University, first disadvantage, and I'm no more in the 30s. So I even don't have any more chances. But still, I'm very happy to be here. I'm the head of the Israeli Economic Mission in New York, taking care for the activity and trying to support the Israeli effort in the East Coast. And I must share with you that I'm completely amazed by the ambitious and by the efforts that had been invested from many economic players here in Florida in order to intensify the connections, the partnerships, the bridges, and the potential between Israel and Florida. You may know or not that we have a joint trade annually of about $600 million. As we have with most of the US, there's a little bit more export from Israel to Florida than Florida to Israel. And we also have quite a lot of Israelis or former Israelis living here, which also creates at least a base for a large cooperation. As Nimrod said, and I think that the critical point is that Israeli companies actually face, how to say, kind of a very restricted local market, and therefore, from the very first day, they seek for international cooperation. Now, there's some characters in the Israeli way of doing everything is, first of all, if we know somebody, if we have a first client, if we have an investor, that's already an advantage, and sometimes that could actually bring to relocation of the company, or at least part of it. The second thing is that we like to tell our friends, call it in Hebrew, לספר לחבר'ה. So whenever people succeed, they very fast going and sharing with their friends and how huge is the potential and how friendly is the authorities and investors and etc. etc. So just to sum up, I'm very happy to be here. We're very, I would say, we're investing quite a lot, both with the Consul General and his deputy, with Lior and with Guy and the wonderful team and all the partners over here. Both Lior and myself had the pleasure to be together with the delegation of Governor Rick in Israel, Governor Rick Scott in Israel last December, which was very successful. We've met different stakeholders, some of them over here, which met Israeli companies and started to build or continue to build the bridges. And I'm sure that taking into account all these efforts that have been done, either here, either in Israel, together with Enterprise Florida and the University of Tel Aviv and Miami-Dade College and all the other stakeholders, I'm sure that we will be witness for many successes and fruitful cooperation. So thank you very much, and I'm sure that I don't need to add any additional information about Israel and whatever, because I think that the company will speak for themselves and share with you their uniqueness. Just to add another thing, we also have Andrea Iona here. Please raise your hand. Andrea is the representative, again. Andrea is the representative of the Bird Foundation. This is the most important, according to me. This is the second most important in Florida. I'll tell why. This is the second most important cooperation between Israel and the US, which you could take advantage of whenever a Floridian and Israeli companies would like to do a joint R&D project. Then the federal US government and Israel have this fund. Please speak with Andrea later on. And I said that this is the second most important in Florida because Florida and Israel also have bi-national R&D program together with Space Florida. So as it's a local, I think it's more important, if I may say. And this is also a very interesting program which yielded already several joint projects. It would be also interesting for you if you have any kind of something that could be relevant to consider that also. So thank you very much, and I wish us all a fruitful day. Thank you.
Roy. All right. Now it's my great privilege to introduce you to our keynote speaker for today. So I won't go through his extensive bio, but I will say a few things about our keynote speaker. He's a computer scientist, a serial entrepreneur, and also an investor. And what I like to describe, he's homegrown here in Florida. Albert Santolo has launched several companies here in Florida, has successfully raised capital being a Florida-based startup. And I believe he's going to have some very inspiring words for all of you. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Albert to come to the stage. Welcome.
Thank you.
Of course.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here today. I'm going to basically just kind of walk through a little bit of my personal story and give you a little bit of insight on what I see coming down the pipe. So, first of all, I'm very much a Miami person, right? So I wasn't born here. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, to Cuban parents, and I moved here when I was 11. I was very happy about that move. We used to come here on vacation, and I always used to tell my parents, this is the place I want to live. And so I always say that when I was 11, they listened to me. And so, like all Cubans, we set up roots here and grew up here. And then one of the most important things that happened to me was that my parents sacrificed and sent me to an all-boy Catholic school called Christopher Columbus High School. And that for me was a very, very important thing later on in life and business. And so attended the University of Miami, studied electrical and computer engineering, later on got an MBA from FIU, was married very, very early and had a child very early before my 19th birthday. And that was a very important piece in terms of the entrepreneurial story, because although I wanted to be an entrepreneur all my life, having so much responsibility early on sort of slowed down the process. And so I started out in financial technology as a software developer on core banking systems. Later on became a consultant, and then eventually was hired into a healthcare technology startup. It was sort of a bridge between healthcare and financial because it was about financing healthcare receivables. And I was brought in as the head of technology at the ripe old age of 24, which really, when you're a 24-year-old technology leader, what you really are is the head programmer. And so I proceeded to work very hard, built the system for this company, and sort of fell in love with what I saw in healthcare. Felt it was my calling because it was this dauntingly complex, under-enabled, from a technology perspective, industry. And having come from financial services where everything was very buttoned up, very computer-enabled, I thought there was a big opportunity there. And so worked at this company for a few years, enrolled in the MBA program, and there came a point where I just said, something's got to give. By this time, I was, I had 3 kids and a wife who was a school teacher, and my wife was not very happy with me because I was either working or in school all the time. And so I decided to quit my job, do consulting for a little while, and while I finished the MBA, and then my goal was to start my own healthcare technology company. But by the time I was finishing up, I got derailed because of a very good opportunity that came up. And I went to work at a company called AnswerThink Consulting Group, which was started by a guy named Ted Fernandez here in Miami in 1997. He was the partner in charge of KPMG Consulting, and he raised $20 million of venture capital, started AnswerThink. And I said, this is too good of an opportunity to pass up. I came in, got founder shares in that company, and we were a public company a year later. So we listed on the NASDAQ in 98. For those of you that remember, these are the dot-com days, right? So these are the days of the high-flying dot-coms. And we had a good run. For 4 years I was there. I was doing management consulting around technology with companies all over the world. But I really, really felt like, I was underutilized and this was not what I was meant to do. So I started working on the business plan that would become my first company in 2000 or so. And in 2001, I finally mustered the courage to leave my job. By this time, I had 4 kids, and they were still pretty young. And I somehow managed to invest my own money, leave my salary, go without pay for a while, and try to do things I had never done, like lead a company and try to raise money. And so if any of you, lived through the dot-com days, you know that the bubble sort of burst in 2000. And after that, for an extended period of time, probably 2-3 years, young technology entrepreneurs were not in vogue, right? They were They were sort of the scourge of the economy. They were the guys who had messed things up. And so I decided at that point to leave nothing to chance, worked extremely hard, and in about 6 months after founding my company, which is called Avicenna, was able to raise a couple $1 million of angel investment from the local community. And this is sort of where my Columbus High School connections started beginning to help me, because through that network was how we were able to source angel funding and so forth and get going. And, you know, to raise $2 million in 2002 was very, very, very difficult. But that got us going. About a year later, raised venture capital. And again, Avicenna was a healthcare technology company. And in the time that I was there, between 2001 and 2008, we grew that company in excess of 55% a year. I think we raised somewhere around 15 million, maybe $18 million of capital. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but did very well with that. And in 2008, I exit, and I was thinking about what to do next. And then, you know, I really felt like there was still a huge opportunity in healthcare. And so got to work on what became CareCloud. And so this is late 2008. So if you turn back the clock to those days, there was a lot of misery around that time. You know, that was when we were witnessing the worst economy since the Great Depression. Fortunately, I was a little older and had lived through the dot-com, you know, raising money in the dot-com days, and so I wasn't very worried about it. But, you know, it was the second time I had to start a company in an economic downturn. And so during that time, again, accessed, you know, my network to bring in angel investment, because being in Miami, you know, venture capital is just not abundant, especially back then. And so the playbook that had evolved for me was to very much go after angel investment and then later on after venture capital. And so we, in 2009, raised about 2.8 million in angel investment, which was oversubscribed. We were trying to raise 2 million. And I heard a statistic once that said that in the entirety of 2009, there was $100 million raised of angel investment in the entire United States. And so CareCloud, a Miami company, was able to accrue almost 3% of that, which we thought was a pretty cool accomplishment. And so that really got us going. A year later, we raised another $5 million of angel investment. And that in that year, in 2010, we were invited by IBM to compete in their Smart Camp competition. And so Smart Camp was IBM's venture competition. It was sponsored by IBM Venture Capital. And so we were shortlisted from 100 companies to go compete in their Silicon Valley competition. And you know, I'll never forget how that was. But there was 5 companies. The other 4 were from Silicon Valley, and here we were from Miami. And we ended up winning the competition. And all the guys in Silicon Valley, you know, was in the Quadras in the middle of Sand Hill Road, and all the VCs were there, and they're all scratching their heads going, you know, who are these guys from Miami? And, you know, we ended up developing a relationship with IBM, but more importantly, developing a relationship with some of the VCs that had been, you know, there to witness what we had done. And they were asking about us, wanting to try to look at us as an investment, but one of the greatest things in life is to be able to tell venture capitalists that you don't need their money right now. And so we had just raised $5 million. We were well financed, and it just wasn't the time. But we kept those relationships warm. And in 2011, when it was time to do the next round of financing, I felt very strongly that it was in Silicon Valley that we needed to go hunting. And so that's not kind of how it was done at that time for the most part. You know, you sort of have East Coast and West Coast investors. And Miami companies, the ones that were backed by venture capital, a lot of them were backed by East Coast investors. And my strong belief was that the best investors in the world were on the West Coast. And this has something to do with East Coast versus West Coast thinking, and I think this has evolved a little bit. But back then, you know, I saw that in 2008, after the meltdown, the Boston-based VCs, especially the New York-based, just East Coast in general, They were very, very conservative. They were mostly financially oriented, people with financial backgrounds, not operational backgrounds. And they were very valuation sensitive. They were very sort of allergic to early stage companies. And it's almost like they wanted to bet on sure things, right? And some of it has to do with philosophically, some of it has to do with who's running the firm, and some of it has to do with the expectations of their limited partners. But on the West Coast, you saw that they were doubling down. They were deploying money like crazy. And that was how the Facebooks of the world emerged and other companies, was because when the downturn happened, they were investing heavily in those companies to make them great. And a few years later, you saw that those returns for the West Coast investors was much, much better. And so that was the rationale for us. I remember Ted sitting in front of my board and telling them, look, I think we should go out and raise $10 million. And they said to me, $10 million, really? How much revenue do we have? And I said, well, we have about $1 million in trailing 12-month revenue. They're like, oh my God, we're going to get crushed in valuation. I said, no, I think we're going to do all right. I think we'll do somewhere in $30 million pre or something like that. And it'll take me 6 months, but we'll get it done. And so that's what we did. We got on a plane, started working extremely hard. Within three months, got a term sheet from Intel Capital, and later on Norwest followed on to co-lead what became a $20 million round that exceeded the valuation targets that I had set. And it took exactly 6 months and 2 weeks to close the round. And so I think, I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure that it was either the first or one of the first Silicon Valley-backed venture rounds in Miami done since the dot-com days. And this was in 2011. And so beyond that point, we did a couple more rounds of venture capital. To date, CareCloud has raised in excess of $100 million. And what CareCloud's business is essentially healthcare technology, financial, administrative, and clinical, to power this very antiquated sort of industry, right? So it's an underlying cloud-based technology platform that connects all of the constituents and then provides enterprise software to run the business. And so in 2015, I stepped down as CEO. I stayed on board for another 6 months as the head of strategy and the chairman. And then in 2016, I sort of left the board and took a little bit of time off and started thinking about what I was going to do next. And so, if you look at all of my experience, I was a developer in fintech. Later on, I was a management consultant in many, many industries where we would implement enterprise software. I was a user of enterprise software. And I was an entrepreneur who stood up, who built enterprise software from scratch and serviced clients on enterprise software. So I sort of had the 360-degree view of enterprise software. And although I worked in many functional areas, many industries in business, the one common thread throughout was enterprise software. And so it was always puzzling to me how we would build the same things over and over and over again. And so I felt like there needed to be a new approach. And that was the genesis of my current company, which is 8Base. And so what 8Base is software to build software. So if you've ever been part of an enterprise software implementation or build out or whatever it might be, you know how painful and expensive it is, right? And so what 8Base is it allows regular people to self-service and build their own enterprise software and then host it in the cloud fully scalable without having to contract developers. So it's sort of a revolutionary concept. It empowers what's called citizen developers. And so, which is a much bigger group of people in the world, right? If you think about in big businesses, all the people that are building out Excel spreadsheets, that are building out things in Lotus Notes or Microsoft Access, or building these little edge applications without going to their IT department, that's what's called shadow IT. All of these people can build on 8Base. And then people in smaller to mid-sized businesses that are under pressure to digitally transform can build out their own applications on 8-Base without having to buy very expensive enterprise software or hire developers, which they're ill-equipped to do. And so this is a big, big deal. And I founded the company in March of 2017, and was really headed sort of down that same path: angel investment, and then maybe venture capital. But then started really studying blockchain and the different things that surround it. And so we incorporated blockchain into the strategy and have expanded the scope of the company overall. And so what blockchain allows us to do is, first of all, we can build blockchain-based software very easily, and we can also create this reputation management system inside of blockchain, so that developers all over the world can participate in 8-Base and extend our capabilities and participate in the reputation management system. So now not only are we building 8-Base capabilities, but the world at large can contribute capabilities to it as well. And all of this will be powered through a token economy. So we will issue a token, and the token will incentivize developers to do the work that they do. So in other words, it will create a business model for developers that otherwise don't have one today. Because the best thing that developers have today is GitHub, which is great. But it's a software repository that basically publishes what people do and how good they are. But this is actually a business model that puts money in people's hands all over the world. And so we're very excited about this, and we'll be announcing the company in the next few weeks, and beginning with the kind of the tokenization process as well. It's been a year's worth of very, very hard work to get the software up and running, and we're pretty close to being there. So that's a quick version of my story. And one of the things that I think is important to note is that there are pros and cons about building companies in Miami. And people ask me, well, why'd you build a company in Miami? I said, because I don't want to live anywhere else. This is my home, and I feel like it's my home field, and it's paradise, right? And there's a lot of things to love about it. And no community is perfect. If you're in Silicon Valley, yes, there are the greatest developers in the world and technology infrastructure and technology professionals, but it's really, really hard to get them. It's very expensive, and it's very hard to keep them. And so in Miami, there's some trade-offs, right? And we've been able to sort of figure out how that playbook works. And it's also my belief that any community needs to evolve to a technology-based community these days. So if you think about it, right, technology is at the heart of everything. It's not just to power business or science anymore, right? Cars are powered by technology. So Detroit has brought a lot of software and hardware talent to the city. And it's true of any city. And with radical sort of disruption that is happening or about to happen with things like blockchain, it gives cities like Miami an opportunity to really elevate itself, 2 or 3 levels from where it is. But there's a lot of infrastructure that has to play into it, especially the educational infrastructure. And there have to be some wins. There have to be some companies that create sort of a Google effect on the community. And then the last thing I would say about that is we also have to act very honestly. So one of the things that Miami is not known for is integrity. And it's incredibly important that we owe it to to each other to act with a tremendous amount of integrity and make Miami a safe place to invest in. Because every time you hear one of these stories that's publicized nationally and so forth, it just scares the heck out of investors. And if we do all those things, I have every bit of confidence that this city can become one of the greatest cities in the technology world that exists, especially because it's probably the biggest melting pot in the entire U.S. The diversity that we have here, and the fact that people love to live here, and that basically all year round we have great weather, is just unbelievable. And so we just need to leverage that and take our place in the world of technology. And that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you, Albert, for those words. And I think it's important to not just hear Albert speak to what makes Miami great, but also to speak to where we can improve. And that's what excites me about Miami. It's why 6 months ago, many of you know, I took over this position as Executive Director of the Idea Center. We have a tremendous community here, a growing community and partners. So now we're excited to get started with each track. Are you guys ready to hear from the entrepreneurs? They're sitting here waiting for you guys. So let's start with the artificial intelligence track. You're going to see each startup come up. All right, so with that, let's start our artificial intelligence track.
Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? What if you were unable to wake from that dream?
Clones, mind files, humans and humanoids, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Natasha Tsakos, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today. A few things before we begin, and I think some have already started, so please do leave your phones on, but on silent. We are about to hear incredible people talk about really remarkable things. And the day is going to go by so fast. So if you have a burning question that you want to ask any of the presenters, please do so using the activity feed on your Startup Nation app. You can, of course, tweet any thoughts, provocation, pictures, videos, selfies, using the hashtag 2018 Startup Nation Conference, as the slide behind me should confirm. Does it confirm it? Great, thank you. Now is the perfect time to shake it out one last time. Feel your body. Open our minds. Vacuum all the preconceived notions and data sets, because we're going to need a lot of space in there. Our first session tackles artificial intelligence. It's a hot topic. Did you know that there are 10 to the 80th permutations of atom in the known universe? That's 10 with 80 zeros of possible variations of atoms in the known universe. As of today, artificial intelligence and machine learning can compute a 10 to the 200th permutation in real time. I don't even know how to wrap my head around that concept. Do you? I mean, today AI can learn, speak, recognize emotions. It can write poems, music, movies, come up with its own cooking recipes. It can drive a car or fly a drone, detect cancer better than doctors, predict social unrest, trade stocks, write its own machine learning software, and sort cucumbers. Turns out it's a very complex task. So how do we compete with that? We don't. There's clearly no room for competition, but intelligent collaboration and integration. So let's dive in and meet some of the disruptors in the field. Coming up are 10 presenters who will share their presentation. Romy sort of explained it to you. They only have 5 minutes, so it's going to go very fast. Again, feel free to meet with them during the networking break or send them any question through the app, the Startup Nation app. Is everybody ready? Yes? Woo! Good. Let's please welcome to the stage our first presenter, Adi Ronan, co-founder and CEO of Fly AI.
Hi everyone, my name is Adi Ronan, and we are Fly AI. Our mission on Fly AI is to turn doubters into buyers on e-commerce. Meet Julia. Julia is a doubter. Julia loves to buy things online, things like vacations, fashion, gifts, electronics, and much more. But because of the high diversity on e-commerce, Julia doesn't know what to choose. Julia is a doubter, and the e-commerce websites are full of those doubters, creating two of the most painful things about e-commerce: the shopping cart abandonment problem and the low conversion rate problem. Think about it. So much money goes to waste. Research shows that more than 90% of online users trust recommendations of friends and family, and this is exactly what we provide to the doubters. We developed a code to implement on any e-commerce website. Our code enabled the end user to conduct a screen-sharing shopping session and consult with friends and family or personal assistant, live and online, using screen-sharing technology combined with chat or a video chat. Then we analyze all those conversations and create big data insights and real-time recommendations engine, all based on our AI technology. So let's see how it works for the end user.
More online shopping carts are abandoned every day. So how can the users be sure and purchase? Meet Co-Commerce, the white label SDK that brings the social ingredient into every e-commerce site. After embedding it, every user will be able to invite friends to a screen-sharing shopping.
Hi, Linda. What's up? I need your help. I want to buy this dress for the party. Which color should I buy? Red?
Well, the red rocks. Wow, you should definitely buy that one before it's out of stock.
And this is how it works for the brand. We collect all these type of messages and identify the relevant words using NLP technology. By our AI technology, we first find actionable big data, analyze the insight for the e-commerce and the marketing department, and real-time reactions engine leads to sales, and more sales. So our values are big data insight, we increase conversion rate, real-time reactions, social user experience, we boost the website growth, and easy implementation for the brand, for the end user, no app required. Our business model is a B2B business model based on SaaS license, and we all know that the e-commerce market is huge. So we will approach to the fashion, travel, cosmetics, home, gifts, electronics, and much more. Basically, every vertical that requires consulting before purchasing. So our journey began 2 years ago. We participated in the Google Campus for Moms program. Then we won the first place of Fashion Tech Bootcamp. We're already conducting a successful pilot with Kipling Israel website, and the numbers are amazing. We started to market our product in the Israeli industry, and we already have advanced negotiations with few of the top players in Israel. So Fly AI is an amazing thing, and we need a really good team. So I'm Adi Ronen. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Fly AI. I'm a passion-driven entrepreneur and a digital marketing expert. I have years of experience in the internet and the e-commerce industry. But the crucial thing that you should know about me is that I live, eat, and dream Fly AI. And this is Yaniv Peleg, my amazing co-founder and the CTO of Fly AI. He's an experienced and talented technical leader with more than 15 years of software development. He already built his own successful company with 20 employees, and he is a Memram graduated at an elite computer unit in the IDF. So we are now raising our seed round of investment. So thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to be here and share our story. I operated an online e-commerce brand an e-commerce brand for intimate apparel in Israel. And I heard the same question from my customers: how it's gonna feel, how it's gonna fit my body shape, what size should I take, how it's gonna look on me. I can't return it. I don't know. It's different. The medium, it's not the medium in every different country. And I tried to help them, but I don't know. I don't know how you look like. I don't have any tool. So I met Michael, my co-founder, and together we started to develop the technology to allow any website to integrate with our fitting room by using our 3D modeling algorithm. We can model the entire collection for any retailer to 3D, from 2D to 3D, and to integrate with our virtual fitting room online. And our goal is to increase conversion for the retailer and to decrease the returns rate. So let's see how it works. So the user pain is what I just described. The customer don't know what size they need to take. They can't return, or if they can return, like in the US market, so they're very unhappy with this purchase, with the experience. As for the retailer, this market, $300 billion market, suffered from 40% of return rate, and the conversion rate online is low. Our solution works as a B2B service. With zero integration, we can integrate with any platform. We bring a new shopping experience, the next standard of technology in the world that hadn't changed very much. Some results from our collaboration with Delta, the largest intimate apparel manufacturer and brand in Israel. We see that 20% using our try-on solution, 90% of them fill in at least one measurement, and 70% go to the last screen for the recommendation. But above all that, 34% add the product to bag after they tried on their favorite bra, panties, or swimwear according to their body shape. So before I show you the product, another super important thing is the data. We're collecting the data about the customers' body shapes, behaviors, shopping habits. We provide it to the retailer. It's information in there that they don't have right now from what we know. And we know how to analyze it and to recommend the customer a personalized recommendation for additional items that other women with the same body shape used to buy. As for the product, so the end user sees us on the product page of the brand. She clicks on the try-on button. On the favorite, let's say, bra. She got the 3D model. She fill in 5 measurements: height, hip size, body shape, breast shape. This is it. And she get the recommendation. She get visualization of the product on her body shape in 3D, and personalized recommendation for additional items. The solution works in physical store. We bring a new omni-channel experience, combining online and offline together. It works with the scanning of a QR code in store. There's no need to install any app. It just appears on the browser. The customer don't need to go to the fitting room anymore. About the team. So this is us. I lead the fashion tech community in Israel, so I really like this field. I'm very much involved. I love to share more information about it. And Michael lead the technology team in Israel, and this is Nir and Eitan, our advisor and first investor. So about just a little bit about our achievements. So we filed a patent about the technology. We received a grant from the Israeli Chief of Science for developing, and now we're raising $1 million to grow and to open the US market. This is it. Thank you so much. I'll be happy to answer any question after that.
Should I go? The content marketing business is content marketing is one of the strongest marketing tools available today. It is also a market of over $60 billion. And yet, marketers are still looking for a better solution. Less than half measure their ROI. It's not just something that I've been feeling as an independent marketer. It's actually statistically shown by surveys conducted in North America recently. Less than a third have an actual content marketing business plan. And the need is evident. Content marketers are seeking a solution to strategize their content, and they're willing to pay for it. So I teamed up with Vadim. He's an experienced developer who has been working for startups in Israel for the past 10 years, one of which is Contera, which was sold to Amobi for over $150 million. Together, we have developed RED, which is an AI-based full solution content platform that is allowing marketers to manage and monitor their content. Here's a sneak peek into our platform. We are allowing marketers to find writers and get personalized writer recommendations tailored for their needs, analyze their content before, while, and after it is being created, manage writers, and ultimately, and probably most importantly, measure their content success. The opportunity is clear. We believe that we will continue we're concluding an income-generating pilot with several prominent companies, among which is Microsoft Accelerator, which is a strategic partner for us and is interested in helping us scale as soon as we launch in a few months. Going back to our GTM, as soon as we conclude the pilot and continue generating more income, we are also about to finalize our seed round. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jacob Bacon, the co-CEO of GradTrain. Happy to be here with you today. So we've been featured in Forbes a couple of times. We've been selected as Mass Challenge finalists. And generally, we made a lot of noise because we're answering a real problem which I think the people who live in this building can identify with. Students have it rough, especially international students who want to move to another country for education, make big mistakes that cost them a lot of money. Sometimes they leave a very promising job in their home country, which they can't come back to later on. So what if we could take all of the information of all the millions and millions of people who moved in the past for the benefit of those who are moving now? And that's what GradTrain is all about. GradTrain is an AI-driven guidance platform for international students. The essence of the platform are machine learning algorithms that predicts people's chances to get into universities in the US and choose the right school. After that, they can meet online with people who studied where they want to study. And based on all the data we generate from those two pieces, we can match them with a lot of services they need along the way to make the transition successful. So it's not just an idea. It's actually working really well. We've been up for a couple of years. And with very limited resources, we've been able to achieve this. I think the most interesting thing is about 20% engagement on our platform compared to 1% to 2% in this industry. We're reaching about 150,000 downloads of our mobile app, growing rapidly. And we have some really cool success stories, such as, that's better. Such as Salman from Bangladesh, who did the whole process through us. He selected his schools based on the predictor, ended up applying to 6 schools, got into 5, 2 with a full scholarship. He moved here, became a coach on Grad Train, and now he's doing his PhD in Texas. So we're pretty proud of him and many others. So why is it working? First of all, it's a big market. International students contributed to the U.S. economy almost $40 billion last year. And despite what's happening with the current administration, this trend is going to continue because it would be a shame for the U.S. economy to give up what's this number, and also given the student bubble that's happening right now with student loans. The second reason is the team. I have over 10 years experience managing large global projects in big organizations such as Fortune 100 companies in the UN, taking big ideas, turning them into technologies that people actually use. My co-founder, Dr. Lital Hellman, was a Fulbright scholar. She did her PhD at Penn, postdoc at Columbia and NYU. And basically her story is what made us start this company. She's an Israeli who moved to the US, and we saw how even with all the amazing things she did, she still made many mistakes along the way. My CTO, Roy Ben Sasson, has over 20 years of experience developing. He has one exit behind him already, and full stack end-to-end developer. The third reason it's working is the product. So here's a quick demo, 44 seconds of how it works. You can check it out on the web, Android, iOS. So a person comes into our website. This is an example of an Indian student who wants to study engineering. I want to study engineering in the US. Then they sign up. This is our sign-up page, which looks more like a chat than like an actual sign-up page. We get about 50% conversion on this page, which is awesome. And then we ask them, do you want to know what your chances are of getting into that school? If they say yes, then they give us more information about where they studied, what their scores were, who their references were, what their job experience was. And then we tell them what their chances are of getting into that school that they're interested in and how they can actually improve their chances of getting into that school based on our artificial intelligence algorithm. After that, they can meet with someone online who studied where they want to study, such as this example here. And they do the whole process on our platform. We build a technology, end-to-end, meetings, scheduling, sharing documents, doing video, audio, chat. Everything happens on our platform, which gives us a massive amount of data, which we can then monetize. So how does this thing make money? So most of our money comes from B2B affiliations and partnerships. There's a whole ecosystem of service providers who are interested in these students, starting with universities, test prep companies, housing companies, health insurance companies, student loans, auto loans, everything you need when you move here to study. So we refer our users to them, get a percentage of what they pay them, and 20% of our revenues come directly from the users who take some of our freemium products. So this industry is ripe for disruption. People are still moving today like they moved 100 years ago. There are outdated information portals online which show you which university to choose based on who's paying them the most. We're bringing something fresh, different, neutral, objective into this industry. That's why the results are what you've seen so far. We raised $750,000 to date in our previous round. We're about to launch our next Series A round. We're going to raise $3 million, which will bring us to the next level, which we should be by the end of this year with about 1 million students using our platform. And when you think about the fact that there are 5 million students who move every year, it's a nice chunk of the market, and it puts us on track to become a leader in this industry. So thank you very much. Happy to be here with you today.
So we're an energy analytics company. We have offices in the US and Israel. We do massive scale solar analytics for the energy sector. Basically what it means is we're scanning millions of rooftops and identifying who's a good fit for solar to drive solar sales. We have tier 1 customers in the US, Australia, and Israel, including big brand names like General Electric, SunPower, CE, and others. We have patented technology. We also were awarded by the Department of Energy and Baird Foundation. And we haven't even going to be cash flow positive this year, so we're very happy. But we want to solve bigger problems. So the electric utility market is facing massive disruption. It has aging infrastructure. It has electricity now flowing into the grid. Peak demand management is becoming an issue. Electric vehicles are going to be deployed in massive amounts and really burden the current consumption data. And energy commerce is going to be much more granular with blockchain and other Bitcoin-like mechanisms. So the new grid is going to be far less centralized. Many thousands of small production units and small storage units are going to be spread out, feeding into the grid. You're going to meet local demand with local production. You're going to save on distribution and transmission infrastructure and costs. And you're going to store energy and use it when you actually need it. And by that, you're going to also shave demand peaks. And actually, this is already starting to happen. They call it microgrid. So microgrid systems are being deployed globally. They're avoiding infrastructure investments, reducing utility bills for customers, increasing grid resiliency to outages, and supporting EV charging. They're even facilitating now peer-to-peer energy trade. But it's all small scale. It's typically addressing a few buildings at a time, university campuses, hospitals, factories. There is no platform for massive scale deployment. And that is exactly what Solview is doing. We're leveraging our proven capabilities for massive scale solar analytics, and we're adding in consumption data and storage data to optimize this. Now, instead of few buildings at a time, with Solview, we are now basically optimizing massive scale microgrid, huge ones. And we are shaping the grid of the future for millions of buildings in vast areas. And we're extending the savings from single customer, hundreds of dollars for a single customer, to millions of dollars to all the customers. Why AI? So basically, to support all this, we need to predict the energy consumption of every customer. If we do this, if we don't do this good, if we don't do this well, okay, then what we have as batteries and storage facilities will spend our energy when we don't really need it, causing us spending more money on energy. But if we do this right, we're going to optimize the usage of our energy. We're going to save electricity and basically be able to save millions of dollars for every customer every day. And this is why we need AI. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Good. So actually today, I'm not going to talk about my startup. I'm going to talk about a revolution and why I have decided to join the revolution and to quit the best job on Israeli TV. So let me start from the beginning. This is me at the age of 2. I was a petrol head. I loved cars since I was really young. And in the family, they say that I identified each and every car. I knew this one is a Subaru, and this one is a Cadillac, and this one is a Fiat. I knew everything. And a few years have passed, and nothing have changed because I made myself, I had a dream to become an automotive correspondent on television, and that's what I did. I was a car critic on Israeli television, and I drove on the best cars in the world, Ferrari and Porsche and many other cars. And how did it start? You know that in Israel, everything starts in the army. And this is what I did in the army, okay? Okay, the army is the first step. And lots of entrepreneurs here were from Unit 8200 and tech units. This is what I did, okay? I was an army radio station DJ, a little bit like Robin Williams, the late Robin Williams in Good Morning Vietnam, but not as funny as Robin Williams and not in Vietnam. So there are many reasons why Israel has become the startup nation. It's because of the army. It's because they can choose out of the best of all the 18 years old, and it's a complex environment, and IDF is heavy on technology, and that's what made Unit 8200 that did lots of stuff, the virus Stuxnet that damaged the facilities in Iran, and Iron Dome, and because of the chutzpah, and you know these all these things, and yeah, speed and agility, okay? And when I decided I wanted to change, there was another thing, okay? I understood that this revolution will kill lots of jobs. For instance, drivers and also driving instructors. And there was one job left to be killed, which is car critics. So that is why I decided to move out of television and to found and route. So let's embark on a journey to the future. It's the year 2020. You're entering the car, and it starts driving by itself, and there's going to be a new currency, okay? This currency is time, new time that will be created. According to Morgan Stanley, 600 billion new hours free for you to do lots of things. One of the things people already do in similar situations is shopping, okay? 20% of all online shopping in the UK occurs during commute, in trains, buses, etc., okay? And another thing is young people don't get driver's license anymore, and that's because of services such as Uber. So this is the industry we're tapping into with a personalized interaction platform for mobility. I'm not going to tell you everything, but it's heavy on technology, heavy on big data, data from cars, and data about the passengers, okay, and want to give people more than getting them from point A to point B. And that's another thing, money, okay? This new currency will create lots and lots of money, hundreds of millions of US dollars globally by 2030, and that's our vision to help people enjoy their newly created time, okay? And I'm happy to be part of a revolution, okay, the auto tech revolution in Israel, okay? So this is the Susita, okay? The Susita was the gem, okay, of Israeli automotive industry back in the 60s. They say that camels used to love to eat out this car. But today, you know, Mobileye was sold for 15 billion, and Waze got sold to Google 1 billion, and Volkswagen invested 300 million in Get. And there are more car companies in Israel than in the homeland of the cars, Germany. And as of today, the new heroes are not people like Carl Benz or Rudolf Diesel, but entrepreneurs from Israel that I'm happy to be a part of. And I started, okay, with me at the age of 2, and I want to show you just a small clip, okay, to show you that things in the Frankel family hasn't changed a lot. It's in Hebrew, but you will understand. So he is my nephew, Roy, and he also knows exactly. Yeah? He knows everything. So these are all my nephews and nieces. We have a big family, and I don't know if they will grow to a world with no driving. So that's the revolution, and thank you very much.
My name is Ana Betsy Rivero. I'm the founder and CEO of Metastatic AI. We're a Miami-based company. And to tell you my story, I'm a biochemist, molecular biologist, and cancer researcher, turned mathematician and computer scientist. Raise your hand if you know somebody who has been diagnosed with breast cancer before. Right. 1 in 8 women will get invasive breast cancer in a lifetime. But let me tell you the story of my friend Pat. She found a lump on her breast, so she wanted to have the doctor look at it. After several doctor visits, she found out she needed to have a biopsy. And the results of the biopsy came back inconclusive. So it turns out that during the surgery, doctors realized she actually didn't have cancer. This is the case for about 90% of women who have surgery as a result of an inconclusive biopsy. And about 1/3 of women are still being overdiagnosed and unnecessarily treated for a breast cancer case they don't have. So we designed and built Metastatic AI, a cloud-based artificial intelligence platform designed to help doctors in the diagnosis of breast cancer with over 99% accuracy in under 1 millisecond while saving patients and insurance companies money. This is what our software looks like. Hospitals and clinics will be able to sign up for an account, and we will be helping them right away. We're hoping to get FDA clearance this year. Our market, as we spend $16.5 billion a year in breast cancer in the US alone, we expect to conquer a part of this market by analyzing mammograms and biopsy data, and we expect to make $50 million from breast cancer alone within the next 5 years. And as we expand next year into diagnosing other types of cancers, we expect to make at least $100 million. This is our competitive landscape. We have some competition from some of the key players in the more traditional molecular detection kits, as well as the traditional digital pathology and some AI-based companies. But we are unique because we have higher detection accuracy and much lower prices. This is my wonderful team, Said and James. They have PhDs and expertise in AI and medicine, respectively. They're wonderful, and believe me, this work wouldn't be possible without their help. Our vision for the future is to combine lab tests with biopsy data, as well as the patient's genomic information, to find a personalized treatment that works for a specific patient at that point in time. We are Metastatic AI, and our dream is to bring personalized medicine to you. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about GraphPath. I don't know if any of you know about it. Probably not, because we've been pretty stealthy. I started the company about a year and a half ago. And really what we're trying to do is help enterprises, usually large enterprises in telco, banking space, people that are holding a lot of data, to turn their data into knowledge. That's really our goal. And we've been pioneers on a concept that you'll see that we sort of invented, and we believe is the future of the way that the industry is going to start looking at how we deal with data, and also then how we apply all the cool technologies everybody talks about, AI and machine learning and so forth. So why is knowledge important? I don't know how many of you actually work in machine learning or AI, but it all sounds really sexy until you have to actually do something at scale. Data usually is not in a state that could actually be leveraged right away by machines and even by humans, right? So if you go to these large enterprises, usually they're very proud of their data lakes that they have, but they don't even know how to get the data out of the lake. Or they don't even know what's in the lake, right? And data lake is usually where they store this massive amount of data they're generating. So we're very focused on helping them organize the data on ontologies. Almost how Facebook has organized the world in semantic relationships of data, we try to do that with corporate data. And as I said, Google already does it, and pretty much all the leaders in the tech space do this. I mean, if you start digging through Facebook, Amazon, Google, you'll see that they all have a knowledge graph. In the case of Google, it's actually called a knowledge graph, and in every quarterly talk or statement that the CEO does, he talks about how much the knowledge graph keeps on growing and how many concepts it understands. So it's of that strategic importance to a company like Google. Same thing, obviously, Facebook, we know it has a knowledge graph, and in the case of LinkedIn, or Microsoft now, they're calling it the business graph or the economy graph, something like that. And that is basically one of the reasons that Microsoft bought LinkedIn. So all these companies have this graph. So our question to a lot of our clients is, how come you don't have your graph? How come you don't start seeing your world in a semantic way, the same way that these people do? And in order to facilitate this, we created what we are calling a knowledge graph as a service. So basically, it's a stack of technology, a solution that comes not only with the sort of the technical side of what is needed, but also comes with the semantic understanding of those industries. So we have knowledge engineers that work on mapping out and creating, based on RDF and OWL ontologies, basically the understanding of all the different concepts of that client, and more interestingly, how those concepts relate to the real world. So that is the work that we do, and that's part of our knowledge framework. Then we have really cool and easy-to-use interfaces, so they could actually deal with this at scale. So you could do data pipelines, you could do machine learning workflows, you could do visualizations all by using our tools, or you could plug it into other existing tools. If you already have Tableau or other tools that are third-party, you could plug it into our API. And then we make it really easy to do machine learning. Right now we support Spark. Machine learning processes, but eventually we'll add TensorFlow and other ones. Honestly, most of our clients are still not at the stage that they can start using some of the deep learning tools. And we could do this on-premise or on the cloud. The company, as I said, started a year ago. We already have 20 people. We have offices in Buenos Aires, where we have the R&D, Miami, and Mexico. We almost break even as a company, and we are now about to enter the next phase of growth of the company. Our clients are leading enterprises, Fortune 1000 companies, mostly focused in South Florida and Latin America. So we have a great set of clients already. And the verticals that we are attacking is, as I said, telecom, banking, but we also entertainment. Obviously, there's a lot of use cases for entertainment recommendation services and metadata search using graph technologies. Retail, healthcare, and government. Pretty much any network-like data structure is great for what we're trying to do. And and the next phase actually we'll probably be announcing soon is actually how we start now implementing blockchain. Obviously, it's a very exciting technology in order to facilitate the vision that we have of building the largest knowledge marketplace in the world. So with that said, that's what GraphPath is, and we're proud to be a Miami-based company.
We make a software platform that is for land, air, and sea-based drones used in the enterprise. We have customers like WeWork, Facebook, Turner, and Skanska Construction. Now, today, I want to talk a little bit different about, instead of talking about what my company is and what we do, I want to just focus on the AI parts of what we do. So when it comes to construction, we help people with their WeWork. What does that mean? 5 to 10% of a construction job site is actually spent on rework. That means redoing the work that's already been done. The reasoning why is they have to sit there and walk the job sites, figure it out, and find the issues. They happen weeks after the work's been done. The other areas that we help out are in farming. So we help finding illnesses and diseases by using computer vision and machine learning, scanning crops, looking for things like laurel wilt in avocados. Now, AI in our world is used in many different places. Driverless cars, all of your mobile devices, it's going into everything you can think of, right? Big companies, small companies, all the companies here today, we're all doing something with it. The key is to think about what that future holds. Is it something as bad as what the science fiction movies say, Terminator? Is it something as nice as Bicentennial Man? Who knows where it's going to go, but I think it's going to be something nice. Now, the key is, when you think about AI, think of it in 3 tranches. You have ANIs, AGIs, and ASIs. An ANI is what you see today, what all of us are doing. We're looking for cancer. We're helping people with school. We're doing something here and there. That's an ANI. It's narrow in focus. An AGI is the next evolution, which is where we're heading. Now, that AGI is something that's being romanticized right now, talked about as, oh, does it have feelings? Does it have a soul? Does it know emotions? Well, let's not get crazy. It's just more advanced. Then ASI is really science fiction right now. So what I'd like to talk about is how we use AI today. So there are 3 areas that we use it in. One is in our operating systems. These are rovers with our software that run around autonomously to an area that's volatile. That means it's always changing and moving, and it can walk and move and roll just like we do through the environment. The second piece is the analytics. So all of these rovers and things capture a lot of data, terabytes of data. Think about hundreds of thousands of rovers, quadcopters around the world, just processing, taking in 4K video. That's no good. You need to do analysis on it. And that's what we do. So one of the components in our system, called the Alive Mind, is what does that. Years ago, we developed this. This is basically a generic machine learning computer vision engine that we can point it at anything. It could be a video, it could be an image, it could be sensory data, it could be anything at all. It just takes training data. We don't program it, it just goes and does its thing. What we found is, we can go ahead and make every little algorithm and apply it to every little piece. We needed something bigger. And that's where we came into another solution. We had other problems with our infrastructure. How fast was our infrastructure? How much did it cost us to do this? How many people are helping us with this? Now, with today, I'm sure a lot of you, hey, what happened there? That slide's messed up. Okay, you can't see what that slide shows. But either way, so today, what you're seeing in the blockchain community is great. We have decided to move from a cloud computing environment, which is very costly for us, for machine learning, to now what's called the fog, a decentralized world computer. Not only that, we've even made our own blockchain for machine learning, which is not for currencies, it's for transactions based off of what the machines learn. That's it. Thank you.
So I'm going to talk about Care Angel. I want you to imagine a world where you have unlimited resources or managers to help manage populations. We live in an aging world. We have a world where 2/3 of all the people that have ever lived past the age of 65 in the history of the world are actually alive today, right? Population management, and this means helping manage our loved ones, parents, grandparents. So we created an AI-powered virtual nurse assistant we call Angel to help proactively manage populations. 86% of all healthcare costs go to chronic population management, mostly in aging populations. Most are aging at home. Between doctor visits, there's very little engagement, right? Once you leave a doctor's office, by the way, or let's say a hospital, when you leave a hospital, 50% of the time after you leave a hospital, your doctor doesn't even know you've been to the hospital, right? 75% of people that have care plans, medication plans, don't follow them, right? They need guidance, they need care. They need to be kind of guided between visits, because guess what? 98% of the time, we're at home. We're not in a doctor's office. We're not in a hospital after we leave. And medication management, proactive engagement is very important. So meet Angel, the world's first AI and voice-powered virtual nurse assistant who calls on a regular telephone. You don't need a smartphone. You don't need an app. You don't need any hardware. All you need to do is answer the phone. Multilingual. Angel also will send you texts. Will send emails if need be. But just a simple phone call, just like a nurse would call or a care manager who follow-ups with you. Imagine being able to leave a doctor's office, leave the hospital, and you have a virtual care team that follows you along with you. Calls, checks in on you, gathers information, and when necessary, will alert the nurses, the care team, your doctor, that there's an issue, that there's a need. Even your family can be alerted, right? So all you need is this, right? That's the latest in artificial intelligence right there. But we were able to also deliver different modalities later this year. Will be available, Angel will be available in things like the Echo, Google Home. And there are no barriers for Angel and Care Angel on our platform because everyone's got a telephone. Multilingual, she speaks about 80 languages. And so, we're able to reach everybody. If you have a smartphone, you can receive texts or emails, we can reach you as well. So we're looking to, expand capacity as well. You have care teams that today are managing populations, doing the best they can, doing a lot of, outbound messaging and outbound calling, and a lot of that time is wasted. So Angel has these evidence-based care plans, right, that are in the system, and it'll reach out just like a nurse would, mimic that conversation, ask, how are you feeling? Did you take your medication? What is your blood pressure? Did you change your bandage? That is specific and personalized to that particular patient, right? That particular person that has conditions or maybe just left the hospital, had a procedure. Providers are alerted when there are issues. Also family members, right, can be alerted that mom isn't feeling well, blood pressure is really high, just ran out of medications. So Angel will collect the vitals, medication adherence, well-being information. The old way, you might have 5% of the population. The way, I'm sure most of you know how in healthcare, they take 5% of the population that is the costliest and basically put a lot of resources there. The rest of the population, very little, because they don't get paid for that. And when a nurse kind of reaches out to populations, that 5%, but 70% of the time, they're either leaving voicemail messages, they're reaching patients that have no issues. We take all of that robotic, repetitive tasks out of the care manager. We do that for them, free up their time, upwards of 40 hours a month, and are able to then focus those care managers on the people that need care, right? And really triple their capacity. So evidence-based care plans, I mentioned, top conditions, top discharge reasons. We're working with organizations like Humana, United Healthcare, Jackson Health, University of Miami, a bunch of others, who we're alerting their care managers when their patients, their populations, have issues. So at the end of the day, we're achieving results of something like 63% reduction in readmissions, $500,000 cost savings per 1,000 patients. In a big way, working with some of the top people in the industry to really deliver this type of solution in the market and globally. Well, thank you very much. That is Care Angel.
Centers. Can you hear me? 1, 2, 1, 2. Yes, good. That was fantastic. My mind is racing at exaflop speeds. That's 1 billion computations per second. I think it's time for a break. Feel a bit surreal by now? But then again, what is real, right? If we dream it, is it real? If we think it, is that real? If we feel it, what is reality? Our brains don't even know. It has funny cells inside called mirror neurons that mess with us all the time. They can differentiate the observed from the experienced. A myriad of realities might exist in completely new dimensions, and some people are working passionately at it. Kicking off our augmented and virtual reality session is a very special guest. His name is Albert Perez. He is the co-founder and CTO of Doghead Simulations and one of the original prototypers of the HTC Vive. That's him.
Thank you, guys. I know you've been listening to a lot of talks earlier. First of all, I would love to thank Romy and Startup Nation, the Idea Center, and Magic, and last but not least, Mauricio Ferraza, being good friends with us here at Doghead Simulations and Miami. So let me talk about VR. And a lot of people right now are kind of wondering, hey, VR, it was launched in 2016, it's already 2018. What happened? Why are we not seeing the explosions? Where's the new headsets? Where is it? Well, let me tell you something. VR is like when the first iPhone came out. Remember that? Like the iPhone 1? I remember like when that first came out, like, hey, it's the iPhone. It's a smartphone, but there was already smartphones back then, the compacts, the Cintiqs. And you're like, well, what's new about this? The big thing that they changed was the interface, right? Instead of using a stylus, you use a finger. But it was slow. The internet back then was, most people were probably on Edge, 2G. Now, we're closing on 5G in terms of speed. We're in LTE speeds. We're going to be in gigabit pretty soon. So this is what I tell everyone about VR, is you have to be patient because it is a new paradigm in how we do technology, UX, UI. The pipelines are different, but not so different at the same time. And why do I say that? Because making VR experiences is like making a video game. From a AAA title, from like Call of Duty to World of Warcraft, to the game engines that we use right now for VR, it's all the same technology and all the same kind of mindset is to be working in a 3D world with different experiences. And the reason why we're having such a big problem right now is a lot of people who want to move from mobile development, web development into VR, they're not quite equipped to think in that new 3D space. So as alluded earlier, I worked in the HTC Vive, which is currently one of the best headsets on the market right now. Thank you. It is the best headset on the market right now. So I was a senior prototyper there. I've worked on it ever since the beginning, up to 6 months after launch when I quit to start my company. But when I was working there, we had a lot of designers who worked on mobile phones, on websites, and they struggled because I told them, hey, look, the way we did things with the screens, touch, it doesn't quite work in VR. We can't force people to do swipes the way we think we do, or even simple clicks is very different. Or how do we even create this new interface where we potentially use our whole body, where the screen could be 10 feet away, 50 feet away? Does it even have to be a screen? It could be a 3D model, or it could be some new way of interfacing with something. And one thing I say to everyone about VR is that we would have succeeded in designing an experience in VR that would be effective if it only makes sense in VR and never makes sense in the real world. One great example we have, with my product, Rumi, in virtual reality, you can just, the teacher can just go, let's take a field trip. And we'll whisk the whole class onto the Great Wall of China itself. Just imagine that. As a child, being on the Great Wall of China, even though it's virtual reality, it's far more effective and far more conducive to learning than just talking about it in a textbook and saying, imagine if. But now we can stop saying imagine if and say, let's go to the Great Wall of China. So that is the promise of VR, and that is what really makes it special. So for everyone out there who's thinking about, oh, all right, so how do I do VR? How do we do this? Believe in it. For one, not a lot of people are believing in it. And that's fine. That means it's ripe for innovation. It's ripe for startups to take over. It's ripe for the new generation to say, hey, this is what VR should be. This is how VR will integrate into our lives. No matter how many naysayers says, VR is just a fad, AR is just a fad, they're just ignoring the fact that it's going to take over. Like from all the screens that we have in front of us, our cell phones, our monitors, our laptops, that will change into these all-in-one VR devices that we put on our heads. Or it could just be glasses like I'm wearing right now, where it could be a mix of augmented reality glasses or virtual reality glasses where it just blacks out and you go to those virtual worlds that's been created. So for you young students, please, the VR and AR is the future. It is the economy that will never really go away. And the earlier you embrace it, the more you're prepared for the future, and you'll come up top. Unlike us dinosaurs here who grew up with keyboards and mice and touchscreens, VR headsets, immersion. It's the future, and I joke about this all the time. That eventually those glasses will go away. We'll just have plugs in the back of our heads. We become batteries. We get harvested. But it is the human evolution. Technology helps us move forward, and VR is that one big step to really change how we've been doing things for the last hundreds of years. From the 2D text to real synthetic worlds that literally make us gods and superheroes and whatever we want, and really change how we perceive the world. So with that, I thank you very much. We have great people coming up and telling you about their VR and AR works. They're great. Saw all their pitches yesterday, and I'm pretty excited for what we have in VR. Thank you very much.
Let's take a look at other innovations in AR and VR from both Israel and Miami. Starting with our first presenter, Abby Mandelbaum of YouVisit. Please, a warm round of applause.
My name is Abby Mandelbaum, and I am the CEO and co-founder of YouVisit. We are a B2B company that helps companies and organizations leverage next-generation 360 content to engage and convert their audience across not only VR, but also mobile and desktop. To give you a sense of the type of organizations we're working with, let's see. All right, that doesn't look all that great, so I'll just talk through it, and then we'll come back to a video, which is the most important part here. Okay, so we're working with different types of companies and organizations, from the U.S. Army, Hilton Hotels, Westin Hotels, Princeton University, Tel Aviv University. We've got a lot of international clients as well. We've got over 800 clients. And what they all have in common is that they're looking for a better way to engage and convert their audiences online. And they've realized that today you can go far beyond video. And so let's talk a little bit about the evolution of online media. Right? Think about an online experience today that wouldn't even have a photo. It would just be text. How much engagement and attention would it get? And we've seen the evolution from photo to video. And today is very much about video, and everybody's like really excited about video. But guess what? Video, it's a pretty old technology by now. So we are now migrating beyond just traditional video and into 360 video. And as many of you probably know, Facebook is really big in that space, YouTube. But we are taking it a step farther because we believe that traditional video is a passive experience. Once you move on to 360 video, now you're providing immersion because you're having somebody be able to navigate around. But you can go a step farther and provide interactivity and make it an interactive 360 video, where now you're not only looking at immersion, but you're also looking at active engagement. So our belief is that we're moving to a world from passive engagement to active engagement. And an active user is so much more likely to convert. And that's what we're helping these B2B companies do. So I want to show you an example. This is just one scene from one of our hotel clients. And it's just one scene out of many. But think about your typical online experience visiting a hotel. Maybe you get some pictures, you get potential of some 360 photo. Well, how about making you feel like you're at the hotel and what you would be able to experience while you're there? And this applies across all of our clients. So let's get this started.
All right. Well, your shots.
Looks like I get to pick.
So as you see here, there are different things happening just within the scene that enable you to explore this Empire suite. Here, there's a video on the screen. Why can't you have the ability to play it? Or if you want some room service coming
Come in.
Good morning. My Belly room service?
Smell.
Or what about checking out the view?
This suite is awesome.
Isn't it amazing?
So good.
I got an upgrade from my company.
Really? You must be doing something right.
You better believe it.
It's got a great view.
So this was all in just one scene.
All right.
And as part of this experience,
your shots.
Let me just mute this. And as part of this experience, you have about 15 different scenes. Now think about the level of engagement that you can drive. And here we're seeing it, by the way, on desktop. As you get into mobile, it gets even more immersive because you can move the phone around. As you go into VR, then you're really blown away. Now we measure very closely engagement and conversion across our 800 plus clients, and the results are impressive. On average, viewers spend 9 minutes going over these experiences, and you can see why, right? It's an active experience rather than just sitting and hitting play and pause. And the conversion rate is over 20%, which everyone's looking for these days online. So for us, it's very much about how do we provide a better user experience while at the same time helping these B2B companies drive results for their business. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Guy and I'm the co-founder and CEO of InSounds. Pleasure to be here. And before I start, I would like you to take a moment and just imagine a viewing experience you have in any event in your daily life and take out the audio of that and see how it feels. Try to imagine. And this is the thing that we're going or working to solve, to make sure that audio is there always, true audio relevant to what you see. The idea came to mind when we were at a 76ers game in Philadelphia, and we saw all the players talking and speaking to each other, but we couldn't hear a thing. So we sat down and we designed a system and a product to have a solution there. Let me show you how it sounds like.
Corey, play me. First base, play me. Hey, watch it.
So in essence, this is what we do. There is nothing on the players, on the coach, on the referees. Everything is remotely. And our mission is about audio content that is captured at the source, enabling a much better experience in an immersive way, which leads at the end of the day to a better engagement for the viewers with their teams and any event that they watch. And the product is composed of 3 layers in a way, sensors that are around the arena, and then lots of software and algorithm to make it happen. So this is the microphone array. This is everything is off the shelf, and we are putting that as a fixed install in the arena. And then what happens is that our software is doing 3 main things. One is kind of an audio zoom in, zoom out, just like you have in a camera, but we do that on the audio front. The challenge is, one of the biggest challenges is the noise. There is a very high level of noise. So we developed a tool to learn the noise in real time and then cancel it. Okay? And then what we do on top of that is we attach a relevant audio feed per each one of the cameras. So if you have 8 cameras, camera 1 is looking at the quarterback, this camera will get the audio feed from the quarterback point of view. If camera 7 is looking at the coach, we'll get audio from the coach. And everything is done automatically. There is no kind of a post-production or audio people that have to be involved in the process. What we do in VR, and this is mainly 6 degrees of freedom, is the ability to build an audio radiation of each one of the objects in the space. And when we look at multiple objects within a given space, we're able to give you the actual true audio per each location in the space and the viewing angle that I take. So if I'm able to walk within a given space freely, I then get the audio, and it's changing based on where I am and what I'm looking at. So think about the next Super Bowl, Tom Brady. I want to watch the game as if I'm the quarterback, and I'll get the audio feed per what Tom Brady is hearing. We're engaged with all the names here that are up here, different, obviously, levels, but we are going live with one of the major leagues in the US during July this year. And with the VR, we are planning to put together content that we do with Intel in their new studio in LA. And lastly, I'll give you another example of the experience in a soccer game. If it plays. We'll get some Spanish here, so this is a La Liga game in Spain. So this is InSounds, and I'll be happy to discuss that with anyone later on. Thank you.
4 years ago, I just finished a post as second in command in F-16 Squadron in the Israeli Air Force when I started feeling pain in my right hand. After a while, the pain grew stronger. I couldn't sleep at night without painkillers, and my breaking point was that I couldn't pick up my 2-year-old daughter. I was diagnosed as suffering from cervical disc herniation due to the active flight. And doing my own rehab process, I discovered that any healthcare is suffering from a lot of those issues. And we believe that VR is the solution. We are creating virtual reality exercise and monitoring rooms and assessment rooms. And as I see it, 5 years from now, we won't, drive all the way to the hospital to see our physician. We'll put a VR headset on. The physician will be able to monitor us remotely and decide whether they want to call us back. So basically, that's what the company is all about. We are taking the golden standard protocol, model them into a virtual reality environment, measure the performance of the user inside that environment, and provide insights for payers, for providers, and for the user themselves. Basically, maybe the most important part of the VR environment is the ability to quantify the processes. Every time someone is putting a VR headset on, it becomes part of that computer-generated environment. And because of that, we can quantify their processes. And we are getting a snapshot of his current status. And that enables us to quantify processes that till now was very hard to quantify. We can now compare between physicians, between hospitals, between different users in different, suffering from different kind of injuries or different kind of diseases. And once we can quantify the process, we can improve outcomes. On the wellness side, we are partnering with AARP, and probably next year we'll launch a VR platform designed specifically for the 50-plus market. And that's, by the way, one of the reasons why we are here. We are about to establish a business unit in Florida that will focus mainly on the 50-plus or 55-plus population. As far as we know, we are the only VR company that is using VR as a certified medical device. Our applications are FDA registered, FDA Class 2. We have applications on the physical therapy field, cognitive rehab, psychological treatments, and pain management. All the R&D is back in Israel, and the business unit is currently in Boston. And we have all those amazing players and partners that already partner with us, including Microsoft, Oculus, and Intel. And our products are commercially available. We just launched a few weeks ago. And among of those customers are Stanford University and hospitals around the Boston area. We are ISO 13485 certified, which means that we are a medical device company with all the QA processes and operating as a medical device companies. And that's what we accomplished in the last couple of weeks. And I think that's, and one of the presenters earlier talked about the future of VR and how we need to be patient. I truly believe that VR, you'll see VR headset in every hospital, every nursing home, every assisted living, mainly because of three important reasons. One, no one wants to be in the hospital. No one wants to be in a rehab center. Once you put a VR headset on, you're somewhere else. That's from the patient point of view. From the provider point of view, again, that technology enables the provider to quantify the processes and improve outcomes. And the latest VR development will enable us to do all of that remotely. And by doing so, we'll be able to improve access and enrich the environment and the entire process. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Liz Pasillas and I am here today to share a little bit about my story but also to present one of my current projects, Mersive. So my former background is business management, but 7 years ago I started helping my co-founder John Alex Herrera in his film projects. So my career just went forward to the film production area. So 4 years ago, we founded New Discovery Media, a multimedia production house that has mainly recognized for the creation of branding content for the US Hispanic market. And last year, we decided to add one of our services, the creation of immersive and interactive content experiences. We have very fortunate to work with brands as Disney, Target, Hawaiian Airlines, to mention a few. Also to work with very well-known Latin artists such as David Bisbal, Cultura Profética, Molotov. But while we were working with traditional content, we just realized that there was something missing. So let me talk to you about Mersive. Even though technology gave us a powerful smartphones, The music video experience has not changed since the 1980s and the days of MTV. And today, users are more about innovation, interactivity, and emotions. So it's time to revolutionize the music video experience. Meet Mersive, a mobile platform that allows you to use existing content to create virtual and augmented reality music experiences on the fly. It is immersive, it's interactive, and it's social. Mersive is mobile first. It's virtual and augmented reality ready. The headset is optional. It has 3D audio that allows you to hear the music like if you were there. You have a 360 viewing space, and you can be part of the content creating your own avatar. And also, it's the best space for brands to connect with music influencers to create sponsored music experiences. So a look into the data shows that 77% of Americans own a smartphone, and 92% of them are between the age of 12 and 35. And they are spending about 1 hour and 20 minutes daily on entertainment, gaming, and music. Our multi-site market is made by Gen Zs and millennials that counts for 109 million on the US population. And on the other side, we have agencies and brands that last year just reported 63% of increase in their influencer marketing budgets. So let's take a look into our personas. Meet Alejandra Jimenez. She is an influencer, independent artist, and she's always looking for the most effective ways to grow her audiences and to gain exposure. Meet our audience. They are digital natives, and they always also caring about creativity, creation, and community. This makes the perfect space for people like Natalia Rodriguez. She represents multiple brands, and she's always looking at change into the market. So how do they come together? So Natalia Rodriguez is always looking for qualified customers, so she connects with Alejandra in a platform who already has an engaged audience. Natalia Rodriguez provides a 3D asset to a platform, Alejandra provides her content, and the audience create a unique music experience for Alejandra. The result, an organic distribution of branding content. Our team is made by myself and my co-founder, John Alex Herrera, who is in charge of the development and creation. And also, we are backed by a great group of mentors that have the right experience to contribute to the platform. And today, our vision is that Mersive will be the platform that takes the video music experience from your phone into your living room. Today, I am very glad to be in this stage because Mersive was conceived here in the Idea Center, in one of the programs led by Gustavo Grande. And thanks to his mentorship and also to the hard work that the whole team of the Idea Center is doing, I had the opportunity to have been selected as one of the 8 female founders in South Florida to present and Unbound Miami. So thank you so much.
We are a production studio with a little bit of a more traditional background. We come from visual effects and computer animation. Our team, it's a small team of 6 people. We are architects, we are web developers, computer animators, visual effects artists, and also producers. Our organization has been working in visual effects for about 14 years now, so we're not really a startup, but we've been exploring the possibilities in virtual reality for about 2 years now, and we're working on a couple of really interesting projects. Our main goal is to enhance productivity overall for our clients. We are also working on the transition of product configurators from a web interface into an augmented reality interface. And we're also creating tools to empower educators. Me, myself, I'm an educator. I've been also a teacher for 13 years now. So I know the needs we have in this area, especially nowadays where our students are different. They just have different mentalities. for our students is not as important to receive information, it's more important to receive experiences. So we are in the right moment to provide our students with this type of experiences. These are just some of the projects that we worked in the past. And the first project we've been working on is we had the opportunity, or we've been having the opportunity to work with many brands creating online configurators. Some of these brands are starting to realize the importance of being able to bring their products closer to their clients, not just through a screen, but as a virtual or augmented reality product that the user can interact with. So we're currently working with a couple of our clients on this endeavor. So pretty soon we should be able to have an online configurator that, of course, everybody will be able to interact with as long as we have the devices. So besides that, we've also been creating support or content that supports augmented reality projects. We had the opportunity to work with Miami-Dade to create a few augmented reality experiences to assess student performances. So we created this animation to introduce students that never had the opportunity to use an augmented reality device to get to know the device before they actually use it. So students watch this video first to get used to how the device works, and then they'll have an opportunity to actually use it in order to take their assessment.
HoloLens is a headset with transparent lenses to allow you to participate in augmented reality experiences. The power button is located on the rear left bracket of the device. The tightness adjuster can be used to regulate the compression around your head. You may also adjust the brightness of the holograms using the buttons on the left side of the device. The buttons on the right side can be used to increase or decrease the volume of the experience. Sound will come from the spatial sound speakers located on each side of the headset.
A few
the HoloLens has an active field of view of 40 degrees.
Tutorials
this means that holograms placed outside this field of view will not be visible. In order to see them, you have to look around by rotating your head or stand further away from the holograms. You can access functions related to your experience by using the navigation menu. This menu
This particular introduction is related directly to one of the experiences that we created for Miami-Dade, so that's why it's so specific about the navigation menu.
We hope you enjoy your augmented reality experience. Have fun.
Okay, besides this, we've also been exploring other verticals. We've done projects for museums and also some educational institutions besides Miami-Dade. And we've been exploring also the possibility of using augmented reality in healthcare. The screen captures on the right side are from some of the augmented reality experiences that we created for the Accelerate program at Miami-Dade. And besides that, we've also been doing our part, trying to show everybody the possibilities that come with the medium. There's tons of people out there that still haven't really tried virtual reality or augmented reality. So we're making sure that everybody gets the opportunity to actually see how powerful this new medium is. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Alvaro. That was great. I actually worked with Alvaro on a project. I had an epiphany backstage. Can I share it with you? So, when new realities superimpose themselves onto our own, right? When we begin to interact with the world's data, when the projected begins to affect the inanimate because the inanimate is now alive, a whole new metaverse of possibility arises. Right? I think it's time for lunch. If you are hungry for non-virtual, actual physical food, please join us downstairs in the atrium. We will resume at 1:15 sharp for our session on cybersecurity. Bon appétit! Well, welcome back to our much anticipated session on cybersecurity. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think of cybersecurity, I inevitably think of the Internet of Things, right? Because with 1 trillion sensors and 100 billion connected devices, objects will develop personalities and talk to one another. Your door will anticipate your departure, miss you while you're gone, talk to the cocktail maker, and greet you accordingly. I mean, that's the world we're moving towards to. It's the ultimate Toy Story prophecy. But here's the rub. If my door gets sick, does my cocktail maker get sick too? Am I being too metaphorical? Okay, so in an Internet of Things, when everything is digitized, cognified, and connected, how do we protect ourselves and our interconnected systems from vulnerabilities? Kicking off our cybersecurity session is Mr. Sharon Rosenman, VP of Marketing at Cyberbit. Cyberbit offers a new approach for managing cybersecurity operations across the converged attack surface, offering training, automation, OT security, and more. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause for Mr. Sharon Rosenman.
Wow. Hi, everybody. That was so dramatic. I don't know how I can take over from now, but hi, everybody. So, yes, my name is Sharon. I'm VP Marketing for Cyberbit. Nice picture. That's actually me. I actually didn't plan this, but I opened my news feed this morning and read about a $300 million cybersecurity acquisition. I honestly didn't plan it to happen today. I don't know if you've read about it, but a company called Phantom was acquired by Splunk. Phantom is a company that does security automation and orchestration, and perfect timing for today, but not just that, it also really ties into what I'm going to talk to you about shortly. So let's jump right in. $21 billion. $21 billion is the amount of cybersecurity startup funding over the last 5 years. That's $21 billion across more than 2,000 deals. Cybersecurity is definitely a global issue. It's a household topic. Everybody cares about cybersecurity. Everybody's concerned with it. It's a national problem. Thinking about ransomware, 2 years ago, used to be something that locks up our laptop. Last year, it took out entire companies. Every year, we have our mega data breach. Last year, it was Equifax. Who knows what it's going to be next year? So the need is there. The need is there, and we have a lot of bright and talented Miami and Israeli-based startups right here today trying to find the next problem and trying to solve it and help. A lot has been said about Israel being a cybersecurity powerhouse, the military ecosystem generating talent for the industry and so on, but actually, while looking at the session today, I found 2 new things about Israeli cybersecurity companies that I didn't know about. The first one is that apparently we have a pretty consistent method, or should I say a strategy, for naming our companies. So if you look at this interesting slide, I'm not innocent. I'm in the middle here. So, but to be serious, here's a more serious slide. Israel is the #2 nation in cybersecurity equity deals and funding, which is quite amazing considering the size of our country. This comes before the UK, before China, before Canada, still far behind the US, but bear in mind that this does not include Israeli companies that are now registered in the US, so the number is actually much larger. This is extremely impressive. So how can we, Israeli and US startups, help the Chief Information Security Officer, the CISO, solve his or her problems? What are their most pressing problems and what are their needs? So these are all trendy words. They're all true. The private and public cloud are converging. IoT, I think we're quite terrified by the previous, by the intro. It is an issue. Deception is a hot topic. Detecting insider threats is a challenge. But we're all looking at products. We're looking at technologies. We're looking at attack vectors. We're looking at the types of threats. But in my opinion, these are not the main problems and the main needs of our customers. When we talk to security executives, they see the problems in a completely different way, and I suggest that we also look at these problems from a different angle. The #1 problem for a CISO today is this. They have too much of everything. They're overwhelmed. They got way too many tasks for the resources. I spoke to a bank SOC manager a few weeks ago at the Israeli Cybertech event. He told me that he has to manage thousands of security incidents every day, thousands, with a dozen or so analysts. They have dozens of data feeds to ingest, dozens of products to maintain, to integrate, and their attack surface is expanding. The problem is not the IoT problem. It's managing a converged attack surface across IT, OT, and IoT. It's all connected. Attackers are moving from attack surface to the other, from platform, from network to another. And the security organization just does not have the resources to deal with it and to manage it. And that leads to problem #2. 82% of cybersecurity executives report a severe shortage of staff. They have the budget to hire people, but they can't fill in the seats. There's just not enough people in the market to fill in those seats. Just in the US, we have over 200,000 unfilled cybersecurity positions, and these people are not trained, they're inexperienced, and there's no effective way to train them. This is a huge issue, and if you were to ask today a CISO, what is the one thing that they would ask for 2018? One thing, they won't say, get me a new technology to eliminate threats. They would say, take away some of my technologies and get me more people and better people. That's how I would solve my next breach. That's the answer that we hear. And are we helping them today? So let's look about problem #3. I really love this map, which I'm sure many of you know, because it immediately exposes the problem. You know, I'm a CISO, it's just so easy just to pick a product and just solve my cybersecurity solutions, right? Look at that. So there's way, way too many products out there and solving problems that are very, very narrow and very specific, and our customers are overwhelmed with products and with technologies. And by the way, we vendors have a very hard time getting on the radar just because of that. Security executives want to consolidate products and not to add new ones. So following on this line, are we really helping our customers do their job? And how do we do that? And what I think we need to do is to help them do more with less. Our customers are not going to expand their staff anytime soon, and the best way we can help them succeed is to maximize the efficiency of their operation. Of course, we need to develop cutting-edge technologies, but we have to look at this from a different angle. It's not just about detecting or about blocking attacks, but it's about how do we help people, the security teams, become more efficient and effective in doing their jobs. How do we make security simpler? How do we reduce their workload? Can we automate manual work? How do we reduce the learning curve for new products? How can we help them train their staff better? We have to think about usability. Our products have to be easy to use. They have to be easy to integrate. We don't always put that first, but that's critical. And we need to move away from point solutions. We need to look at the problem in a much, much broader way, because that's how our customers are viewing the problem. Our customers' problem is broad. If there was one question I would ask about a new product that I'm developing, it's, is this product adding workload to my customer, adding complexity, or reducing workload and complexity? If it adds workload in integration, in onboarding, or in usage, we have a problem. If it's the other way around, we're on track to win over our competition. The acquisition that took place this morning that I just mentioned ties directly into this story. The industry is moving towards automation, towards reducing integrations, automating, orchestrating, reducing workloads, and doing more with less by increasing the impact of people. And I believe that companies that look at their products and at their strategy that way are the ones that are going to win this game in the coming years, and possibly are going to be the ones, or they're going to be the story that we open for next year's Startup Nation Conference. Thank you very much. That was the end of the keynote, but there's one more last thing that I want to add. At Cyberbit, our company, we've been trying to follow this line from day one, and one of our 4 products, actually we also have a security automation product, but one of our other 4 products is a cyber range. A cyber range is a training and simulation platform. It's kind of like what a flight simulator is for pilots. The cyber range is for training cybersecurity experts and students. We always say that you don't put a pilot in a cockpit before you send him through a very long course on a flight simulator. So why do we do that with cybersecurity experts? I don't know. Cybersecurity people often experience their first breach when it actually happens. They've never seen it before before the actual breach happens. Why are we working that way? And I'm happy to share some exciting news about that, and to announce that Cyberbit and Miami-Dade College are partnering to open the first hyper-realistic cyber range right here in Florida, right here on campus. This range is going to enable a completely new approach to cybersecurity education, a hands-on approach based on simulation, based on experiencing real-life attacks. It's going to create new job opportunities for men and women here in South Florida. It's going to help them kickstart their careers in cybersecurity. And it will also be a training center for you, for organizations in South Florida to onboard and train your staff in a completely new way. I'd like to just to show you what a cyber range looks like in one of our universities, more or less like this. This is the training center, the instructor room, the classrooms, and this is exactly what we're going to build here at Miami-Dade College. And I'd like to invite Mr. Antonio Delgado, the Dean of Engineering, Technology, and Design here at Miami-Dade College, to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aaron. So, on behalf of Miami-Dade College, I'm very, very excited of this announcement today that we are launching the first cyber range training here locally for South Florida, but here in Miami-Dade College. And just a year ago, we have the first edition of Startup Nation, where Cyberbit came to present their product and came to talk about the amazing things they are doing globally. And just 1 year later, we are here announcing this unique partnership that is not going to be only useful for our students. It's unique because it's for you guys. It's for the whole community. It's for the whole community of IT professionals looking to get the hands-on skills, the real training on how to react to attacks, how to defend your company, how to be even better, not just because the theory says that you know, but because the practice of this cyber range will give you the skills to defend your company, to defend your data. So I'm very, very excited of this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to invite you all to our opening, which is going to be here in this same location downtown Miami, Miami-Dade College, Wilson campus, hopefully in just 3 months. So stay connected. We'll be in touch. Thank you very much.
Checking 1, 2. I'm back. Well, now it's time to hear from our other entrepreneurs working in cybersecurity from Israel and Miami. And to kick it off, let's please welcome Dotan Barnoy of ForceNock.
Hi, I'm Dotan, CEO and co-founder of ForceNock, and I'm going to echo a lot of things that Sharon mentioned. ForceNock is a zero-configuration web application firewall, but I'm going to unpack exactly what I just said. So how many of you ever purchased anything in Amazon or United bought a ticket? So yeah, I would imagine. So what actually is, most companies today, maybe all of them, has customer-facing application websites. And when you log in, you actually log in, you put your user ID or password, you log in, you do your purchase. You're actually having request and response from this website, this customer-facing application. And some customers has thousands of those applications. How many recognize any of those logos? Yeah, so Equifax is very famous, but this is the top 10 data breaches from the past 10 years. Yahoo, where over 3 billion user ID were actually stolen. So what happens is that not only good, legit users are actually trying to log in. Some of them are malicious. They are hackers that are trying to find vulnerability within the website in order to access the database. In the end, they are all driven by $sign. So what they actually is going on is this is a serious issue. Most customers are facing data breach and attacks on a daily basis. They have to stop those, and those, when they happen, they cost a lot of money. This is the #1 cause. Over 30% of data breaches initiated as a web breach. Because it's very simple, it's very accessible. And when I'm attacking a website, I can do it over and over again until I'm succeeding. Nobody will stop me. Nobody's going to call the Interpol to stop me for just sending malicious requests to a website. When you're using the current solutions, companies like F5, Barracuda, even Citrix, Miami base, you actually are using a solution that fit the threats from 5 years ago. Those solutions are extremely slow. They are not accurate, and they are manually intensive. And again, I'm echoing what Sharon said. That means that every time you have an application launch, you need those solutions to be configured in according to this application. There is a set of rules. How many here try to log into their account and after a while throw a CAPTCHA, ask them to fill in the letters? So this is a set of rules someone defined that said, try 3 times. Let's check that it's not an automated tool, not an attack, and we'll just pop up this CAPTCHA. But this is extremely manually intensive, and it's not working. It's very easy to bypass. What we've done at ForceNock, we developed a system that is fully automated. There's no expert needed. We took the human factor out of the equation, and with it the errors, the slowiness, if there is a word like this in English, the inaccuracy. This is an easy to deploy, easy to use solution. And it's fully automated. So as a customer, you don't need any more expert to deploy or to maintain it. It makes things very easy for you. So that means customers that are currently using solution can very easily move to our solution, or customers that couldn't use those solutions because they're very complex can now deploy our solution. There's no change to the architecture. There's no more costly delays for deploying updates every time you want to launch a new application. You don't need to update your web security solution. We are launching our MVP next month. The solution finalized beta with few design partners like Wix, HPE, Intercloud, and we are raising our seed. But what I was asked today was also to talk a little bit about what we can do as users. Because they told me there's going to be a little bit of students, some people that are worth mentioning, what we can do. Because until ForceNock will become a best practice, we still need to actively do things in order to make sure that we are protected. So of course, my suggestion is don't use computers. Leave that, no mobile, no computers. That's the best thing to keep your information secure. A piece of paper, notebooks, that's the best way. But if we want to be serious, we are going to use them. So first of all, updates. So a lot of us got these small numbers on the right side of the computer saying there's some updates. In most cases, those are security updates or driven by security breaches, vulnerabilities that exist in. So when you use a browser, when you have an operation system, get them updated all the time, as much as possible. When you use a specific software, do the same. Password, I can't mention this enough. It's very easy to talk about it, but most of us will use more than one password for many websites. Most of us will not use the two-factor authentication because it takes too long. When they ask you the name of your pet, it doesn't necessarily have to be the name of the pet. You can invent something. It makes it harder. Most of us use Facebook. We can find the name of the pet there. We don't use that. Another thing, of course, is Wi-Fi. I actually, this morning, opened unsecure Wi-Fi here, and only 2 people logged in. So it's good. It's a good start. Don't log into unsecure Wi-Fi. That's I can dig into that. And another thing, look at your browser. When you get an email, when you get a link, you have to look at. And I actually had to go to websites that are malicious to do this screenshot. So look if you have the HTTPS, the security SSL. Look for that. Make sure that you're not going. Don't go to torrent, of course. And emails and links. And this is a key issue. When you get an email from someone that you don't know if it looks malicious, I spent a couple of hours fixing my dad's computer after he got an email with an attachment that his tickets to London got canceled. And I was talking to him and asked, did you plan to go to London? He said no. So why did you download it? They are very smart. You have to think about it. They do A/B testing. It's campaign for them. They do money from that. So they are very clever what they write and how they write it. And of course, you can go over that. But in the end, keep it simple. So you can write a password that looks like TR0UB and so on. It takes about 3 days on 1,000 guesses per second. Very hard to remember, very easy to guess. However, if you use correct horse battery stable, that will take on the same rate about 550 years, easier to remember. So there is a joke that we actually trained ourselves for the past years to make very difficult to remember, very easy to hack passwords and not the other way around. So it doesn't have to be necessarily hard. I'll be happy to talk with you afterwards. I'm here in one of the booths. And thank you very much, and keep yourself safe.
Hi. So before we begin and talk about Silverfort, so wanted to say 2 things. One, we just closed a very big round for us, and we're very excited about that, $12 million. And second, it's my birthday today, so I'm happy to celebrate it here in Miami. Thank you. Even so we got the funding, we're still, of course, looking for business and so on. And in general, any excuse to come back to this wonderful city would be highly welcome. So, 5 minutes is pretty much a lot of time, but still, let's talk a little bit about Silverfort. So we are a cybersecurity company, specifically in authentication. Silverfort was founded by 3 founders from 8200. It's the equivalent of the NSA. We have over a decade of experience, both industrial and military expertise in cryptography and cyber. So first of all, the problems that we are tackling. We think it's the biggest problem in cybersecurity, but it's for sure one of the biggest. Identity-based attacks. So basically, it's a huge challenge for organizations today to determine whether the credentials that they see, the user and the password, even though that it's the correct password, everything is okay, to distinguish between the cases that the entity who uses this password is the right one, the legit one, can be the employee, a subcontractor, a machine-to-machine account, and so on, or an attacker who stole the credentials. Can be phishing, keylogging, brute force. There is many techniques. Today, it's relatively easy to steal just a password. So this is the problems that we are focused at, and we hope to raise the bar there and make it more difficult for attackers to pass the threshold. So what we are offering to the organization is actually, and the message is pretty clear. We are the first product in the world that know to add strong authentication capabilities anywhere across the corporate network. We do it via a network element. Actually, we'll get back to this slide later on. But the focus is on the entire. We can add strong authentication to any use case. By strong authentication, I mean multi-factor authentication, i.e. when you enter the password, you will get a notification to your phone hi, is it really you? Now try to access this server. And of course, the biggest trend that we identify today in authentication, adaptive risk-based authentication. Because we see and monitor all the traffic, the authentication traffic in the organization, in the corporate network, when something abnormal is happening, different IPs, locations, patterns, something suspicious that doesn't supposed to happen is happening, we know to do a step-up authentication and prevent the attack in real time. So there is a few two technical slides that I won't go all over in here, but if someone wants to do a follow-up and discuss it, I would be happy to. In general, this represents the corporate network today, and it's very fragmented. There is many different use cases. Basically, if you're authenticating from a web browser to a modern web application or from the VPN, from outside inside, you have very good solutions. The second you are outside of this box, you don't have, there is many gaps, critical ones. For example, when we spoke to a bank, when they understood that we can protect the use cases of the admins who do maintenance to the more technical persons here via NTLM, Kerberos, RDP, SSH, it doesn't matter, to do maintenance to resources who handle the Swift platform. When they understood that we can protect this use case and add strong authentication capabilities to it, the conversation ended. They stopped listening and just proved to me that you can really do it. And there is many gaps. You see it in IoT devices, that there is a lot of difficulties there in authentication. IaaS, AWS, Azure, it's some people even use Google Cloud. There is many gaps there, and it's more scary for you because it's your service. You handle the authentication there. It's very clear that there is a need for a platform that can protect all of those many different use cases, the medical devices, storage, and so on. And luckily, we had the breakthrough of having the ability to add strong authentication without deploying any agent. Actually, this get back to the first and last slide. We know to add those capabilities with zero agents, no configuration to the servers, and practically they're not even aware that these exist. This is why we can truly protect any use case in the corporate network. Thank you. Music.
Well, in the last World Economic Forum, it was defined by the attendees that cyber attacks was estimated about $1 trillion. $1 trillion. Many of those attacks, when they get to enterprises, enter through the endpoints, the PCs that all of us are using. Most of those attacks are very simple and will be blocked by antiviruses. But 40% of those are really very advanced, exploiting vulnerabilities in the memory of the PC. And 75% of those attacks are those that are succeeding, breaching the enterprises. An example for that is the WannaCry attack. Maybe some of you heard about that. It was launched mid last year and very quickly spread all over the world and caused an estimated damages of $4 billion. Only one attack, $4 billion. And we had many like this during 2017. This illustrates attacks that we stop at our customer sites, similar attacks. Ransomware, banking Trojan, rat, miners for Bitcoins, and more and more. So the question is, spending so much time, so much money all over the world on defenses, and still, attackers are a step ahead of the defenders. So why is that? The main cause for those attackers to succeed attacking very well defended enterprises is the fact that the targets are predictable. They are static, and that's predictable. The operating system you're using, the application you're using, works always the same. So the attackers can learn the vulnerabilities, plan a very nice attack, knowing that when they will attack, everything will be the same. So the way that the industry reacted to that was by detection, trying to understand what the attacker is doing and look for those patterns by rules, by heuristics. The problem of those methods is that first, usually if they will stop it, they will stop it after some damage already happened, and it's very costly to remediate. And second, they find it very, very hard to stop attacks that are new, what we call zero-day attacks, because they don't have any knowledge about those attacks. So at Movisec, we take a totally different approach, where we make those targets unpredictable. We do that by making them a moving target. We take the memory structures of the PC, we randomize them every time something happens there, and the result is that when the attack meets the target, expecting to find certain structures and resources that it was designed in advance to exploit and use, suddenly they find something totally new, unknown, and automatically fail. By this, we gain prevention of the attack before the attack even happens. And now, the attackers, in order to break our system, will have to learn what we do. And this is a fundamental change in our security works, because until now, everyone are chasing after hackers, trying to understand what they do, but now they have to invest a lot of efforts to break moving target defense systems. I'll skip that for the sake of time. To make a very strong security system is one thing, but making it easy to operate is another challenge. Thanks to our technology, we made sure that our product will be extremely easy to install and maintain. We call it install and forget, and this is a huge factor for our customers. So the overall value proposition for our customer is very powerful protection, because we prevent very, very sophisticated attacks. We save them a lot of operational cost because of the fact that our system is extremely simple to install and maintain. And we ensure the business continuity by the fact that we prevent the attack before the start. With that, we were able to have a very rapid customer ramp. We are almost over 30 customers, 400,000 endpoints already protected by our technology all over the world, and all our customers so far renewed. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Herzl Ozer, Cyber 2.0, the company that I believe would change the world of cybersecurity. Actually, what we do, we are the only system in the world that blocks all kinds of cyber attacks within the organization network. The system will protect the organization against the next unknown attack, even if it bypassed all the other defense systems. What makes us different? We are blocking with no detection. Unlike all other cyber companies, we don't block the attack. We block the attack without having to detect it before. What else is different? And you'll see we are different in almost everything from all other cyber attack companies. Okay, we do not study the organization routine. We do not use attack database. We do not rely on the infected computer. We do not making benchmark to the baseline, so we do not legitimizing malicious software that predate our deployment. No alert, no delayed response for real threat, and no false positive. Our solution, it stops all malicious programs connecting to their creators. It blocks all the information leaks, even if it started before our deployment. Render reverse engineering ineffective, which means it will be very difficult to attack our system. But if the system will be attacked, it will continue to defend the organization, although it is disabled at the same time. It's risk-free, no network slowdown. Our unique solution is based on mathematical chaos model, which is breached. Almost all, if not all, cybersecurity based on biological model. We are the only one who use the chaos mathematical model. The chaos engine, I will not go deeply to all the technology, but I would say that if we want to stop the unlegitimate software, we do not stop them on the computer, in the infected computer. We do not tell the legitimate go out and the non-legitimate stop. We do the opposite. I can't go over all the technology, but we have a booth outside. Anyone who wants to understand how it works, we will explain, of course. We have already 40 customers. When we start to present it to customer, the reaction is, this is too good to be true. We can't believe. How can you stop something that you can even not recognize? But after they do it, and we have a wide range of customers from all industries, they see it works. And for example, I can tell you that a few customers like MDC, a Japanese company, that's what they say. They integrated our solution and it worked, okay? And Basic International, which is one of the telecommunication companies in Israel, the same. Cyber 2.0 offer a complete solution of all the challenges. And Jerusalem Post, again, customer who deployed our system and remove all his other defense system in the organization because he realized that our solution is enough to do it alone. And we have a roadmap. I will, of course, because of the lack of time, I will not go deeply, but I can say that we cover all the range, including IoT and autonomous cars. So give us a call, and we promise not to block you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Rob Vasquez, I'm the President and Chief Security Officer of Clarion Managed Services. I have no idea what picture that is or where that came from, or which decade it was taken in. So, thank you. We'll click through. So I'm just going to have a few brief words of who we are. We use a tremendous amount of Israeli technology in our service packages, so I think this is a great forum for us to talk to you guys. We're not a startup, obviously, but we want to get some ideas and share some ideas since we utilize such a tremendous amount of Israeli technology. So I'm going to talk about who we are, our partners, moving the needle, and cybersecurity. 30 years doing this. Probably this is the most fun I've ever had in my career as we've moved into this cyber paradigm over the last 4 to 5 years. So it's real exciting times for us. Clarion at a glance, we were founded in 2002. We're headquartered in Miami. We have regional sales locations in St. Louis, Detroit, Michigan, where we work extensively with automotive. And we're opening an office in Amsterdam in May of this year to address specifically GDPR. So if you guys are familiar with GDPR. We represent over 125 manufacturers. We are an MSSP to 7 enterprise security partners, primarily Palo Alto Networks, so you guys are familiar with them. We recently added IronScales out of Israel, which is a startup. And we're very excited about this technology and what it's going to do for us in our portfolio with anti-phishing. We're also the 3rd largest independent Lenovo distributor in North America. Our cyber strategic partnerships, we're partnered to Splunk, Palo Alto, Iron Scales, again, out of Israel, Sophos, and then we have an expansive partner ecosystem that we work with. Our verticals, we're heavily embedded with cyber insurance. So I spent a tremendous amount of time in New York working with XL Catlin, Chubb, Beasley, et cetera, introducing to them disruptive technologies into how they assess risk, right? So this is like the new thing now is it's been a race to zero in selling insurance policies, but after 2017 and the amount of checks they had to write, they're now looking at different solutions, right? We're in biomed. We're working with a nation state right now to embed our technologies into voter fraud, into election machines, utilizing AI. We're also working with foreign military, and we're also working with a multinational entity with point-of-sale transaction systems. Moving the needle, how to innovate through disruption. So if you look at the trend over the last few years, there's been a doubling effect in information layers such as AI, robotics, biotech, nanotech, medicine, neuroscience, energy, and computing, of course. What's happened is as this doubling effect has occurred, there's been a digitizing. We've digitized it. It's disrupted, right? We then demonetize it and then democratize it, right? So, and this has caused within the IT industry, particularly in information security, there's a deception of linear versus exponential, right? So as we introduce these technologies into the different programs and different packages that a lot of you folks are designing and embedding, you have to deal with what we're calling the societal immune system, right? The kicking back. So if you look at Uber, for example, who was kicking back the hardest from Uber? Taxi drivers, right? If you look at homeschooling, right? Teachers union. If you look at Bitcoin, of course, the banks, right? So these are institutions and paradigm shifts that we call the immune system that kick back. Examples of rapid acceleration of innovation. If you look at the cost of a solar module in 1980, it was $16. In 2012, we're below $1, right? DNA sequencing, 1971, $10,000. Today, or in 2010, basically irrelevant. IoT devices, staggering. 2008, 500 million. 2030, we're going to be, through doubling, we're going to be at over $1 trillion, right, by 2030. Cybersecurity, why do we continue to fail? So we get back to this linear versus cognitive methods in solving cyber crisis. Predictive behavior versus agility. So if you look at the ways and the systems that we have today, where they're conventional systems, they're based on response, detection, et cetera, versus prevention, right? That's huge. And the technologies that we work with and how we assess our technologies, they all have to be preventative based as opposed to detection. Institutional paradigms, that's the biggest thing that we deal with as a company, particularly that first point around 2018 major research firms. Starts with a G, ends with an R. We all consume it. We've been consuming it for a long time. Basically, it's a quadrant. And in that quadrant, they mentioned the word EDR 80 times in 2018. So the entire industry is still focused on detection versus prevention. So basically, disruptive technologies will reduce the attack surface if you leverage AI and by utilizing a multi-method by design. That's it. Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Robert Roncesvalles from Trapezoid, and I'm a former Navy cryptologic chief technician. I was assigned to the NSA while I was on active duty, and prior to Trapezoid, I worked at the big data center up the street, Terramark, that was acquired by Verizon in 2011 for $2 billion. I was the first cleared security engineer there. And as a team, we worked between 80 and 120 data breach incidents a year. And my team and I built the Security Operations Center from the ground up and also the security architecture for the cloud platform. So if you think, we talk about the basement, if you think about computers and devices on the network like homes, everyone's got an address. You've got windows, you've got doors that are like ports and addresses. What's been going on, though, is people are putting alarms and things on the doors and windows, but the bad guys have been having a party down in the basement for the last 10 years or so. And down in the basement, you have firmware. And what's in the basement? You have the thermostat, you have the hot water heater. So if you control the firmware, you control everything. You can turn up the house to 90 degrees, and you can tell the family it's 70 on the thermostat. So it's a big deal. There's threats out there. And the firmware threats come out really three different ways. There's attacks in the wild, and then there's also disclosures that researchers are doing. So if you go to conferences like Black Hat and DEF CON, you've got researchers, they're doing work, and they're disclosing firmware vulnerabilities. And then the third class you have is what I'll call involuntary disclosures. So you have the Edward Snowden leaks from the NSA, and then you have the CIA Vault 7 leaks. They all have firmware capabilities in them. And if you look at the dates on some of those documents, they date back to 2008. And in 2008, that's when I was at one of our data centers talking to federal customers, and they said, hey, Robert, we love what you're doing, but what happens if you receive equipment that's already compromised? You reinstall the operating system, you throw away the hard drive. They are talking about firmware attacks. Aside from the threats, there's now compliance requirements. The federal government has mandated, and people are starting to fail audits because they're not doing anything about firmware. When you look at different security tools out there, everything's looking at the network, the cloud, the application. We're focused on that basement level. There traditionally just hasn't been a lot of visibility down there. So our tool product platform is called the Trapezoid Firmware Integrity Verification Engine, or Trapezoid 5, and we're focused laser-like on protecting the basement. We're looking for unauthorized changes at the firmware layer. And from a customer perspective, we're working with people like cloud service providers who want to provide a higher level of security to their customers. We're working with some international organizations who have deployed us on their security infrastructure so they can detect attacks at that level. So that's our platform. And we work with different areas of organizations. If you look at the firmware problem and you look at security, if you're dealing with the CISO or the security folks, now the operations folks have to start doing things about firmware. They're the guys who manage the routers and switches, they manage the network devices, and traditionally they don't want to update their systems because if the network's working, you don't want to do anything different. From a security perspective, we provide forensic information, and the security guys, all they want is they want enough data so they can investigate and respond to a security incident. And then, of course, the compliance folks, they're having to deal with the audits. So we're laser-like focused in this space. And guys, I appreciate your time. That's all I've got. Thank you very much.
I feel like a rock star now. Where's the music? That's a great picture of me. I look younger. So a little bit of what Sekbero says. I'm the CEO and founder. I'm going to try to keep this at 3 minutes. I have a small message for the student, investors, and bigger companies. I've been doing this for about 10 years. This is my third cybersecurity startup. The last two actually exit to other bigger companies. A little bit of Sekbero's. I spent all year last year thinking about what problems are companies having in security. Before the login, before the antivirus, there is a step where they're migrating to the public cloud. So if you see this graph from 2015 and 16, it says every country is migrating their infrastructure to the cloud. So before we talk about any fancy analysis, and it's really cool to do that, there's a problem that companies need to secure their environment, and that's what we're trying to do. The problem, everyone here knows the problem. Not enough people, lack of visibility in the cloud, it's time-consuming, and it takes a lot of money to do this. So our vision is to simplify and automate cloud infrastructure security. our solution. Our dashboard will prioritize what to do next. We'll enforce 24/7 compliance and security in the cloud. End-to-end visibility, which is the more crucial piece of cybersecurity. And of course, integration and remediation. This is what the arc looks like. So we sit in the middle. We're looking at the data from the cloud infrastructure. And we provide end-to-end security when it comes to that. Very simple product. You connect your Amazon, Azure, or Google Cloud. It gives you all this data. So red, not good. Green is good. The middle layer, you can't see it, but it shows you your completion from a compliance perspective. So, and then over there, we can do a drill down method where we can see who has access to what environment, what networks are open, and what risks have been identified. So our main core is remediating and tracking cyber risk. Very simple pricing model, $4 per server. We run in the cloud. And the team behind, I've been here in Miami for 15 years. I was lucky to be part of a startup here in Miami. 2008, got acquired to Akamai. And I last co-founded Senech, which got acquired to Oracle in 2018. In the last 10 years, I've probably mitigated over 50,000 attacks. So if you're a student and you want to do anything cybersecurity, I'll be a mentor or help you. If you want to do internships, we can definitely talk about. If you're an investor, we're raising a round. We're not in the market yet. We're working on a product for the last 2 months, and we want to release in the next 3 weeks. We're heading to London for an accelerator, and with us, there's a great team of cloud computing, and everyone has an exit on their background. One of the things, and to close, as I was thinking for this company, someone told me once, people don't pay for aspirins, they pay for painkillers, and that's what we're building. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I am Lior Elkan from Shield IoT. We offer cybersecurity solutions for the Internet of Things. Along with the IoT revolution and the escalating cyber attacks, the forecasts show a rapid growth in the IoT managed security service provider market. This MSSP market is expected to reach over $11 billion in less than 3 years. What we have learned from organizations like SoftBank, AT&T, Orange, and many others in our pipeline is that there is a huge gap in the market. As can be seen, almost 80% of the existing security operation centers, SOCs, would like to support connected devices in the next 2 years. However, less than 10% have a solution today. Shield IoT offers an IoT purpose-built security operation center. The solution is designed to secure real-world heterogeneous networks with diverse devices from many applications, from many vendors, and across any topology. The IoT SOC we supply manages the security of the devices, including alerts, policies, security updates, and threat mitigation. The solution is deployed on the cloud of our customers, which are service providers or network operators. In cases where the devices are connected to the cloud via a gateway or a router, we install a light agent that supplies multiple layers of device security. This light agent uniquely supplies an automatic prevention and threat mitigation, assuring that the gateway and its connected devices will continue normal business operation. Shield IoT also offers an artificial intelligence-based anomaly detection service without need to deploy any software agent. So even if the devices are connected directly to the cloud, we still protect the devices. Use cases that the company is involved and has performed the customer's proof of concept include smart cities like smart lighting with Philips Lighting in the Netherlands, and smart meters protection with Cellcom, the largest mobile operator in Israel. This is the case study of Philips Lighting. They are also service providers of smart lighting, and they sell over 700 cities all over the globe. And they selected Shield IoT to protect not only the gateway that the streetlights are connected to, but to protect any device in the network and to provide the IoT SOC to manage all the security across all Philips Lighting product lines and business units. Shield IoT AI SOC, Shield IoT, the AI-based anomaly detection, is based on over 12 years of a thorough AI core set academic research in Caltech, MIT, and Haifa University, led by Professor Feldman. The solution is, thanks to the disruptive approach, we can analyze massive amounts of metadata coming from millions of devices in real-time streaming mode. And we can, without changing anything in the devices or in the networks, we can identify first signs of anomalous activities, such as DDoS, node replications, communication hijacking, as well as operational issues, such as misconfiguration and malfunction. The background of the team includes leading organizations like Checkpoint, Akamai Security, Cisco, and prior to founding the startup, the two founders worked together in Array, building a big data analytics, machine learning, unsupervised machine learning solution to protect the industrial IoT and financial institutions. Professor Feldman is the head of the AI and Big Data Lab in Haifa University, and he is leading the Shield IoT algorithmic research group. To summarize, we are witnessing an immediate demand by IoT service provider to supply managed security services. Shield IoT was created for and is supporting today this fast-growing market need. We raised the seed money last year. Based on the traction, we are raising now a new round. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lior, and to all the presenters for sharing your insights on the cybersecurity industry. It's time for a break, a shorter break, though it's 30 minutes only. We will be back here at 3 p.m. for our final session, The Way Forward, as we explore next steps in solidifying the relationship between Israel and Miami. So, happy networking.
Our last session is a panel. It's our closing session for this conference, and it's titled The Way Forward, looking for ways to forge closer ties between Israel and Florida. And so we have some amazing thought leaders that we've invited to come and speak to you tonight. And I'm going to introduce each of them, and then they're going to have a conversation. We wanted to give this one session opportunity for any of you who have had a chance to listen to all the different presentations today, to ask any questions. So we will have each of the speakers tell you a little bit about their connection or how they are bridging ties between Israel and Florida. And then we'll have a Q&A before we close it out. And you'll stay hopefully long enough because we are going to have a cocktail reception right afterwards, right here. So with that, Brian Siegel is our first speaker. He's going to be moderating the panel. Brian is the director of the American Jewish Committee's Miami office. Brian, welcome. Brian is going to be joined by Rachel Feynman, who's the executive director of the Florida-Israel Business Accelerator. It's a Tampa-based accelerator, and Rachel made it here today to join us. Welcome, Rachel. Next is a gentleman you heard from in the morning, Mr. Inon Elroy, who heads up Israel's economic mission to North America. Mr. Elroy. He's coming. Maybe give him an applause to get him going. There he is. Music, that's what it is. That's what we need. It'll be a dancing show here at the end. And last but not least, a dear friend of mine, the CEO and founder of the Venture Hive, Susan Amat. Welcome. All right, I will leave it to you to start off the conversation. Brian.
Great. So happy to be here, so honored to represent AJC. I come at this from a bit of a different perspective. So I'm not an economist, I'm not a businessman, and not in the tech field. AJC is a global Jewish advocacy organization. So we reach out on behalf of the Jewish community to other ethnic and religious leaders, to international diplomats, and to leaders from across the spectrum to talk about policy issues and find ways to bring people together and find common ground. As I looked around Miami, and I've been here for 11 years, and I tried to think of who are the people and what are the institutions that are bringing people together to build community and common ground. One of those that I found doing this in an extraordinary way was the Knight Foundation, and in particular, Matt Hagman. And so as I started talking to Matt about the vision for Miami as a hub for technology, we talked about things such as the idea that the world is getting flatter, and we started talking about the need to bring people together so they can learn from each other. And in particular, we decided that if Miami was going to grow in the ways that he hoped and many of us hoped would happen in the tech entrepreneurial ecosystem here, it would require learning from other models, other cities in the United States, but definitely other places around the world that have really developed such a robust and strong system. And so we looked, and he had read the book that you all have now, Startup Nation, and realized that Israel could be a great place to both learn best practices, but also develop relationships. So we came up with the idea, and the Knight Foundation funded a delegation of technology entrepreneurs from South Florida to go to Israel. This was in 2015. AJC, through our Project Interchange, which is an educational institute of AJC, has been taking delegations for over 35 years. So we've taken over 6,000 leaders from all around the world to Israel, with the idea being that there is no substitute for firsthand experience, that seeing the country, meeting the people, there's just no substitute for that if you really want to understand Israel as a country. We had, however, never taken a group of technology entrepreneurs. So first we had to figure out what to show them, and we also had to decide who from Miami we wanted to take. And we wanted a diverse group of people and thought leaders, people who are really determined to make Miami a true hub of technology for the southeast of the United States, for Latin America. And so we found a great group, and we took them. And we took them to, of course, Tel Aviv. And you've heard a lot about Tel Aviv as really the epicenter. But we also took them to Haifa, and we took them to Beersheba, and we took them to Jerusalem, because in all of these places, amazing innovation is happening. And our goal for this delegation was essentially to bring people who would come with an open mind and be willing to learn best practices and to share their own experiences and best practices, with the hope that relationships would be developed and that long-term strategic partnerships could potentially come out of that. And we are so thrilled that actually did happen. So the best example of that is what we're doing here today. The agreement was reached between Miami-Dade College and Tel Aviv University. It was really one of those cliche moments on the back of a napkin where one of our delegates, Leandro Finol, the former director of the Idea Center, came with us and developed a relationship with Oren Semanian, who's been here today from Tel Aviv University, and they decided we want to concretize our relationship that we just formed and find ways to share information, knowledge, ideas, and that led to the first Startup Nation conference in 2016. And here we are again today, and it's such a thrill. But that's not the only tangible outcome from this delegation. Number one, the Knight Foundation found it valuable enough to send another delegation in 2016. So that was our second group of 10 entrepreneurs. And we'll be taking a third delegation at the end of April. Building this connection and this back and forth between Israel and South Florida. Another example that you'll hear about momentarily was one of our delegates from our first trip, Susan Amat, has been doing some extraordinary things in developing connections, as have other alumni from Project Interchange, some who came from FIU, from the University of Miami, and from a variety of other institutions. So again, on behalf of AJC, our goal was always to find a way to build community, to find a way to increase opportunity by connecting Israel and its prowess in the innovative entrepreneurial ecosystem with Miami. Miami being the perfect place, and I had seen this in my 11 years here. There's so much innovation here, there's so much diversity. This is really the perfect place for this partnership. So again, on behalf of AJC, we're thrilled to be a part of this and to hopefully be a catalyst to see these relationships growing. So with that as our topic of discussion, I'd like to move to our panelists now to talk to them about their ideas for where do we go from here and what are they specifically doing to take us there. And Susan, if I can start with you, since I've already been referring to you. First of all, could you tell us a little bit about Venture Hive? And then could you tell us about your vision for learning and finding ways to bring the educational tools that you've developed to places all over the world, and then why Israel?
Four-parter, got it. Hi, so Venture Hive started over 5.5 years ago now, really focused on attracting startups from all over the world to Miami in industry verticals where it made sense for them to be here. So trade logistics, travel hospitality, healthcare, fintech, all those areas where we had very strong potential corporate buyers, customers, and we did a pretty good job very early in being able to recruit very strong entrepreneurs who wanted to stay. And that's the big thing. When you focus on recruiting companies for economic development instead of just investment, you look for a different type of person. And pretty quickly in 2013, I was doing a lot of measurement and evaluation work for other organizations like the World Bank and the Kauffman Foundation. And I kept seeing everywhere I went, they didn't have good data. They didn't really have an understanding of the impact to understand what was working and not working in their programs, whether they were government ecosystem type programs or VC funds and projects, even in terms of the ecosystem development projects that were happening through universities, et cetera. So 2014, we started building software. And now we are a software education company. We do training all over the world for governments and corporations. We've run accelerators within Walmart and Microsoft. We train corporate employees how to think like startups and build products and services internally. But more importantly, in a lot of ways, we train them on how to actually work with external startups. So within Walmart, for instance, we built out their due diligence system so that there could actually be conflict of interest-free mentoring from internals and a smoother onboarding. But at the heart of what we do is really support any type of entrepreneur or innovator in building out their own skill set to execute. So through Project Interchange, it was really my first exposure to the other side of understanding the history of Israel as the startup nation. I already knew a lot of Israeli startups and a lot of really cool people and academics, But when you understand all the socio-cultural and political aspects, I mean, that trip was incredible. We met with the chief negotiator for Israel. Just once in a lifetime. Since that trip, I've had a lot of opportunities to do more. And in fact, I was just there actually with Rachel on the governor's delegation, where we partnered with a fantastic firm that specializes in technology transfer and commercialization. They've done programs now in more than 26 universities throughout Asia, and we're building out a process and a training program, if you will, for corporates and academic institutions throughout this side of the world to be able to create that bridge back to Israel. So I've taken every opportunity I could. So I feel like I'm working part-time on behalf of AJC, which is a pleasure.
Glad to have you.
I think the next step forward really comes back to helping people connect, not just on the business level, but as individuals to see those longer-term relationships play out. And we've been really focused on making sure that there's a human connection as opposed to just a business connection. A lot of times when we start working with companies, it ends up they want to be very transactional and get as much done as possible in this short amount of time. But when you start peeling off the layers of potential challenges that the company may have in entering a new market, let's say, or strategic partnerships to actually access a totally different distribution stream than they had already kind of like glommed onto as this is how we're entering this market. When they're open to understanding the longer term strategy and the potential other uses or fits for that product or service, where they don't have to do any alterations to their software or their product, they may just have to trust that somebody else can get them in front of that distributor, that potential client, etc. It's incredible how quickly some of these partnerships can alter the course of a company that may have been working really hard in one area and then cannot move into a new market or a new geographic location because they just haven't been open enough about their own potential strengths and weaknesses. So that to me is one of the biggest challenges that we try to help people. It has to be trust and really good communication and then documenting it properly so that, 4 months later I'm like, oh, you need to meet these people, and we're able to make it happen. So.
Great. So let me just ask one follow-up question. Sure. You're such an important leader in this whole field and really a pioneer, and you've seen Miami change. So in terms of this relationship that is growing and building between Israel and all of Florida, which we're going to hear about in a minute, but specifically on Miami, I want to focus. Are we ready? How have things changed that you've seen in terms of the ecosystem here growing? And what needs to happen in order to make this relationship continue to blossom?
So I'm a pretty divisive person. And one of the challenges that I continue to see, we are a lot more ready than we were. But a lot of people think that our ecosystem is growing because there's so many new providers and so many new accelerators. None of that matters. Either the companies understand their job is to create value or they don't. I don't care how much money you raise. I don't care about any of that stuff. If you're not creating value and building happy customers and long-term revenue opportunities, none of it matters. So I think that where the Israeli version of that is very focused on strong technology and then funding, and then maybe they exit a little too soon, but you know what? At least there's real technology there. I think we have a long way to go in building out real, deep technology with patents, with a very clear model of exactly how we can go to market with the product, but also create a lot of value outside of the initial market offering. I think that's something.
Let me ask you this. So based on what the presentations we heard today, where I think we really got a great sampling from both the Israeli side and the Florida side, were you able to discern some areas where you think there's maybe compatibility is not the right word, but complementarity and ways in which we can find to help each other?
Sure, there's always great ways to be complementary. Technical due diligence is not at the level here that I think we need to get to. And when we have people calling people out on technology earlier and helping them build really robust solutions that may have real IP attached to them, that changes the trajectory of what we're doing. I think that is not always the case from what I have personally seen from our Israeli friends. And I hope that we can continue to learn in that respect, not just building a cool deck and getting people excited, but having real IP attached to it. And when that transition is made, and Rachel's accelerator is a really great example of, they're starting with real technology companies coming in.
Great.
That's not how our scene at this point has started, and we are going in that direction, but it's definitely not at the state that we're all excited to get to.
Great. Well said. And let me ask one final question, because you and I were talking earlier.
So my news can continue.
No,
yes? Okay.
No. You're a realist, and you're getting things done here. So you're part of the solution. You work with companies all over the world, throughout the Middle East and throughout Latin America, and really all over. When you think of the partnerships, and you think of Israel specifically, and what you've seen from your trip with the governor, what are some of the areas that you've seen that you think have the greatest potential in terms of the ongoing relationships that we want to build here? And what are some of the lessons, frankly, that you've learned from some of your other endeavors?
So I think the threads of this conference hit it on the nose, but beyond that, I think aerospace and defense industry. I work a lot with the military as well. We do a lot with different military groups in DoD, and I think that there's already a lot of collaboration, but it hasn't been made where it's like startup to startup. I think that that could be a very, very big opportunity for us, especially in northern Florida. So, I mean, Rachel's going to mention the Florida thing versus Miami. I think that is really, really important. This has to be a statewide initiative of all of us working together and finding ways to connect. I mean, in Tampa, there's a lot going on for DoD, but if they can connect up to the Fort Walton Beach, Pensacola area and back to Miami with the proliferation of defense and aerospace companies that are coming here, if we connect all of that, we're going to be able to bring great companies here and keep them here. Great. When they're looking at one city, it's much harder for them to get the level and the amount of potential partners that they need to really go to the next level.
Thank you, Susan.
No problem.
So that's a perfect segue to you, Rachel. Rachel, tell us about the Florida Israel Business Accelerator, how it started, what lessons you're learning, a little bit about it. It's really such a great mirror image in my mind of what we were trying to do by bringing tech entrepreneurs from Miami to Israel. You're actually bringing Israeli entrepreneurs to Florida. Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and thanks, Susan, you touched on so many things that I think are critical to this conversation. As was mentioned before, the Florida Israel Business Accelerator, we are in Tampa, so we're a little bit of an outlier on the day, I think, in terms of focusing on the Tampa Bay, Central Florida area, but our focus really is statewide. We, like Susan mentioned, we went with Inan and Susan and other people who were here at this conference with the governor in December to Israel, and it was really amazing to see firsthand from the Israeli perspective that deep, meaningful connections are really being made between the country of Israel and the state of Florida. And I think that all of our collective efforts are just going to continue to make Florida rank higher and higher on the list of places where Israeli entrepreneurs are going to decide to root their U.S. or North American or even American operations, including obviously down to Latin America. So that's our focus, is we got started on this. It was conceived as part of the Tampa JCC and Federation. So we're unique in that we're a project of a Jewish communal organization, similar to the AJC. And there was, I think, a lot of foresight of the people involved in building a phenomenal new JCC that we have in Tampa. And they said, okay, what are we going to do with some of this space? And there were a lot of ideas floated around. And I think it was around the time that Dan Senor, the author of Startup Nation, the book that everyone received, had come to speak to the Jewish community in Tampa. And so people had some really good idea. Let's bring the startup nation here to Florida, more specifically Tampa Bay. And quite frankly, most of the Israeli entrepreneurs that we started talking to didn't really know where was Tampa. My colleague, who is our Israeli liaison and here at the conference with me, she's Israeli, which I think is of critical importance when you want to entice Israeli entrepreneurs to come check out Tampa, Florida. It really helps to have someone who can relate to them culturally, speak their language, and be immediately, like Israelis are, just be immediately friends. That's really, I think, helped. But we do have to go through some education in terms of not just Tampa, but, Israelis think of Miami, but they think of it for vacation. They don't really think of it as the place where they're going to go for business purposes. And I think one of the things, once we get over their initial skepticism of Florida, and I think we do a really good job of explaining why Florida. And some of these themes have come through, and I think this is important when we're thinking about the way forward, is to focus on what the strengths are that we have. And I know that throughout Florida, probably including Miami, compared to some other places, it's a very open, friendly business environment. Susan, you talked about making those meaningful connections to corporate partners, focusing on our strengths. That's exactly what our program is focused on. We're bringing Israeli companies here with innovative technologies where we think they're really going to get that initial U.S. market foothold. And we're working with them very closely on the things that you mentioned, Susan, which is helping them to understand, because they have a product. They've got 30 customers in Israel, let's say, but then they come here and they really need to understand that their market strategy and the ideas that they had in their mind from their accelerator that they were sitting at in Tel Aviv might not translate. So we make them talk to a ton of subject matter experts, potential customers, and other people, and they don't always like it because we slow down the brakes sometimes on the sales process, but we found that it really is a missing gap of what Israeli entrepreneurs need to be successful, not just in Florida, but in the U.S. And we create an environment, and I think being part of a Jewish communal organization really helps with that, because we sit in the middle of a JCC and we have a revolving door of very connected and involved community members. And now we've taken that and back to the mission, I think, of the AJC, this is much bigger than just our Jewish community. This is focused on our business community, our investment community. Everyone understands, and I think there was just an article, it was a really great time leading up to this conference, there was an article in the Miami Herald about that connection between Israel and Florida and how you really can make Florida a more innovative state by leveraging Israeli technology and Israeli entrepreneurship, and that's exactly what we're trying to do at FIBA, and we'd love to do that in coordination with all of the others, including Susan and everyone who's trying to be successful and make that happen.
Great, thank you. Well, that was my op-ed in the Herald, so thank you for referencing
great.
it.
Okay, I should have connected that.
No. So thank you for that. We've heard today very exciting news with the idea that Miami-Dade College and CyberBit will now be having this collaboration. I thought that was such a great takeaway. When you think about success for the Florida Israel Business Accelerator, what in your mind does that look like?
Yeah, so success for us, we are focused on helping nurture and grow some of these Israeli startup companies. That's definitely part of our mission. But our larger mission and goal is really to make a lasting positive economic impact in the state of Florida. And that can look many different ways. It can be direct job creation. It can be indirect job creation because we have an Israeli company who's now beginning to manufacture here because they're hiring resellers or because their innovation now is leading to a whole new team at a corporate partner because of how they're integrating that technology. It can be unique investment opportunities for our investor community, which we've seen happen. We're now in our second year with our second cohort of companies. One of our first companies received a substantial, their Series A round of financing basically from local investors. And because of the FIBA program and the introduction of these unique companies to our market, I think the whole state, including Miami, has a bit of a reputation for a lack of capital, lack of investors. And when we elevate the caliber of investment opportunities, whether it's because we're home growing better opportunities or we're importing them, then that's just going to make others from Boston or Silicon Valley or New York or other places take note of what's going on here in Florida. And we really need to try to do that all in coordination with one another. So I think that's really what success looks like for us. I think we're well on our way to continuing to do that.
Well, clearly the state of Florida believes in you and has invested in you as well as others. So really congratulations on all the great work you're doing.
Thank you.
So Inan, I get to turn to you. And we learned a very important phrase earlier that I think some of you knew, maybe not everyone, chutzpah, this audacity that Israelis tend to exercise. And there's another word, and we've gotten to this point in the program called tachlis, which means kind of like brass tacks, like what's the actual takeaway. So Inan, you are the Minister of Economy and Industry for the State of Israel for all of North America. You have the vantage point of seeing where Israeli technology entrepreneurs and companies have been able to come into the United States in various markets and develop connections and relationships. We obviously today really, I think, got a strong sense that South Florida and all of Florida, as we just heard from Rachel, really is such a prime market for Israeli tech companies. But Susan, our realist, pointed out there's still a long way to go, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. Be interested in your perspective on where do we go from here? What would success look like from the Israeli government side?
This is relatively complicated answer, I would say. First, I would like to share with you that what we are discussing today is not typically relevant only to this beautiful state. It's relevant also to Israel. You shared with us earlier about the experience of visiting Tel Aviv, but quickly we said yes, but also Jerusalem and Beersheba, and you can say Haifa and Herzliya, and it was not like that, like 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we were really struggling what could bring economic development to Beersheba. If not Ariel Margalit and some other stakeholders, Jerusalem would not necessarily be in the same place in regarding to innovation where it is today. So it leads me into the understanding that a success journey need to have different ingredients. The ingredients, and I echo what Susan said before, first of all, you need to identify the competitive advantages of state, region, city, and I'm not the one to do it. I think it was demonstrated very interestingly in regarding to the sectors, in regarding to the strength of this state and area. Second, I think that you need to have stakeholders or champions, interested parties, and I think that thanks to the hard work that you and many others and the governor and his team and Enterprise Florida and so many positive people with vision and interest in intensifying the relations have been investing for a long time. And the third one is trying to bring everything together and to create what we discussed earlier. It's the stickiness. Okay? It's not my original term, but I think that stickiness is very relevant to our discussion. There's many states in the US looking and seeking for Israeli companies. Now, again, we need to take one step back and remember that the Israeli companies, probably most of them that are interested in more than the local restricted market in Israel of about 8 million people, needs to work internationally from the very first moment, and even to think about it when they, plan what they want to do. And if Florida wants to differ from other states in the U.S., it should also think how to be more sticky, how to make this added value that would be beneficial for the companies to be there, not only because of funding and not only because they're very nice people and sun and hospitality, something which is tachlis, okay? And I'm an Israeli, so I allow to use chutzpah. So I bring everything together. Now, in order to connect it, I will tell you what I'm thinking of. And I told you the example of Beersheba and Jerusalem, and we can think of one of the clusters which was not so developed in Israel, which is water technologies. The government of Israel decided one day that it thinks that there is enough competence in this field and that there is an international market. So we need to do something. It launched like maybe 8 or 10 years ago a program which called New Tech. One of the, I would say, vehicles or platforms within New Tech is a support program which actually encouraged the utilities to test and to validate technologies. Because these people, they just need to go home safely. They just want to make sure that every one of us will drink water with no problems, that electricity will run, and that no accidents and no surprises. This is their DNA, which is very legitimate, okay? That's what we expect from them. So we want them to try and to validate technologies? Are we crazy? So you can be crazy when you bring some money, okay? Sometimes. This is something which we can learn from. Same thing for health. The government of Israel launched a couple of, I think 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, a huge program for us which called digitalization, Digital Israel. We thought, still think, that Israel is not the same level that it should be in everything which got to be digitalized. We put money in order to do 2 things, to be more digital and to stimulate economic development within these fields. Again, so the bottom line is that if we want to create stickiness here, I think, and as I told you, I have some ideas what could be done because there's so many stakeholders here that want to do something and that know the right people. And I think that as we are very similar in the Mediterranean, although you don't have the Mediterranean Sea, but still, I would say, the culture, I think it might be easier to, it's not easy, but it might be easier to try and do something. So imagine that there is going to be kind of, and maybe within the existing platforms, because we have the Bird Foundation, which could serve us, and we have the Space Florida Israel platform that also could be of beneficial, but there should be something that maybe some money from different stakeholders would be that could do. I would propose to launch a pilot for a year with 2 that would consist the following: helping Floridian companies to validate their technologies in their market, which is then maybe going to be easier because we don't defer them, which they are the taxpayer over here, from others, and to open it internationally. And as a former Vice Director General of the Ministry of Economy and Industry, I can tell you that there's a magic word which called pilot, okay? In the first year, it's going to be pilot. The international feature going to be with Israeli companies. So this is time to market and something like that. So with this respectful audience, I invite whoever thinks this is a feasible thing to create a stickiness. I hope that I was able to explain you what is the difference and why I think it's important.
Great.
Because for a typical Israeli company, you know, Florida, Miami, Connecticut, Massachusetts, for different. So if they're life science, probably they will think of Massachusetts. By the way, Massachusetts is too many letters, so Boston, it's easier. That's life. You can ask even the people in Massachusetts, when they speak to Israeli companies, they say Boston. It's safer. So when it comes to life science, they will consider Boston first. If it comes to digital health also, but if it comes to fintech, if it comes to media, if it comes to sports tech, if it comes to all these things, they would probably think either New York or the Bay first. So again, keeping in mind Beersheba, keeping in mind, and I'm not comparing. It's totally different story. But it's
competitive
something.
advantage.
It's something the government decided that it's going to pump funding to Beersheba, and it actually created Beersheba as the cyber capital of Israel. And we were ready to invest in cyber companies, a lot of money. By the way, EMC got a lot of money and other companies because they understood that it's very attractive to be in Beersheba. And then when you pass the critical mass, it's no more very difficult, okay? But the critical mass has to be, and one of the advantages of Israelis, if I may say, and if I may generalize, is that whenever something works, the fire is fast.
Well, thank you. That was very illuminating, and I think this concept of stickiness, I'm not sure if it comes from the book, The Tipping Point, but I think it's related, and I think my sense in seeing the second conference and the leadership of Romy Batia and his team and the people here, that we really are getting closer to that tipping point of being really a great partner with Israel to keep developing this ecosystem. I think we have a few minutes to hear some questions. If you all who've been so patient and have waited here today, so we thank you for sticking it out and being here. So if there are any questions from the audience, now is the time. Yes.
Take companies to Israel. And Rachel, about networking opportunities with the companies that you bring over from Israel.
Sure. So mine's pretty simple. It's a partnership that we started with the Knight Foundation, and because the Knight Foundation was much more ingrained in the ecosystem and the space here, we've really sort of looked to them to tell us, who are the people that are doing innovative things that would come with an open mind to learn ways that they could find best practices, collaboration, share their experiences. So that's primarily how we've gone about it, is trying to find people who've never been to Israel before, but who exhibit those characteristics. And mainly, we've deferred to the folks at the Knight Foundation who know.
So I think it's really been an amazing experience for me. I've been with FIBA for about 4 or 5 months or so. So this is my first time. We actually have 4 companies that are sitting in our space in Tampa right now. They're there for 4 weeks, and they're fully engaged in the Tampa Bay community. And it's been really, really great to see. Their visit actually overlapped with our local startup week. They've participated in pitch night at one of our local accelerators. So there's been a ton of knowledge sharing, a ton of connections made. To your point, Susan, really it's about the human connection. It's about the personal relationships. And then from there, the business relationships really develop. So the other thing that I think really is unique about our program and what we're able to do when we bring these entrepreneurs over is really create that, or give them that tachlis, if you will, because we make those connections. And from there comes other connections and more connections. And that's really how you grow your business, isn't it? I mean, it's really relational. It's relationship based, and I think that's really what's able to happen. We create those unique experiences for the companies when they're there, and the hope and what's happened with our first cohort is that they keep coming back. You can't build a business in the United States in 4 weeks with one person. It's a process. So people really need to be invested in that entire process. And that's sometimes a challenge, right? I mean, generalizing, Israelis are looking for that quick exit, like you said. And I don't know that it's just Israelis. I think it's a lot of people out in Silicon Valley and other places too. But what we're trying to do is really create those connections. And we're also in the process of planning a trip to Israel, where we're going to similarly bring our business leaders, tech entrepreneurs, VC investors, other folks who are really interested, and we're creating this trip and we're planning it because we know the demand is there. People really understand now what's going on in Israel, the magic that is Israel, and they want to see it firsthand. And we want to be able to bring them there because we do think that human connection and relationship development is really where all the good stuff happens.
Great. I think we have time maybe for one or two more questions if someone has them.
1, 2.
Hi there. I wonder if you can speak a little bit to the panel. If looking at the local ecosystem, whether that's Florida or Miami, what can we do as entrepreneurs to be better prepared for those opportunities? And I think that's something that oftentimes doesn't get talked about, especially when you're dealing with enterprise or government sales. That, from your view, and the things that we can do to be better prepared.
Susan, may I please take that? So that is a really great question, because I think a lot of times entrepreneurs focus, especially in Miami, a little bit too much on relationships and not building something that has real value. Relationships are great once there's real meat there, and then you can show people. That was not the analogy I was going to use. You can have something real to then be able to sell and create something on top of, not using the relationships to then build out the strategy for the business. I think the number one thing is going to be being very honest with yourself and your team, having people understand, depending on what kind of company you have. I mean, we work with hundreds, sometimes a couple thousand companies over the course of the year, or projects, I would say, because we do corporate programs as well. We see a lot of different types of people. And at the end of the day, people invest in leadership. They invest in honesty and ethics and integrity, unless there's great technology that they can take from an otherwise not great team that will lead it through. So it's really, really important that you keep asking yourself on a regular basis, how do I make myself better? How do I make my team better? In all of those soft skill ways, as well as showing your product and having real technical due diligence, real financial diligence, and being honest with yourself and everyone about what's working and not working so that you can get better. There's a whole fake it till you make it thing with startups all over the world, and in Israel, you get called out on that. And there's 1 degree of separation, and you'll know very quickly. You can ask the right kind of person and figure out who's full of crap or not. That does not happen here. And that's sometimes a problem. So if you really care about making sure that you are good, find really tough critics, be very open to their and ask them for real feedback, and then do something about it and document it and ask for follow-up with them and show them what you've been doing. But get people who really actually know how to do a technical assessment, who are really going to be honest with you about your financials and not just figure out how they can then become a service provider for you or represent you in raising a round. Avoid people with conflicts of interest for those things so you actually can continue to develop your skill set. Because as we know, most startups are going to die at some point. If you are investing in yourself throughout the journey of building this new product or service or business, you will come out ahead whether or not the company does well, and you'll be ready for the next one. And all those mistakes you made in the first and the second business will not be there.
Great. Great advice. Any other questions? Well, this has been a
Brian.
great. Oh, sorry.
Just one point. In this very
our
special
lights are-
moment.
I wish I had a
So-
flashlight. There we go.
Lights up for a second. Sorry, Inan.
One moment.
I just wanted to share with you, with all those that might be relevant, might be interested, sorry. We bring almost every month a group of Israeli companies, or we're doing activity with a group of different groups of Israeli companies. At this moment, there are 65 Israeli companies in Barcelona participating at the Mobile World Congress. So a team member of mine is there and bringing people like you from the East Coast, meeting with them. Next week, we're going to be at HIMSS at the West Coast. Again, 30 Israeli companies. In April, we're going to be at RSA. Again, 55 Israeli companies going to be there. So feel free to touch base. We'll be very happy. I mean, I can continue with the list till the end of the year and also next year. In addition, there's for all of you who plan visiting Israel, keep it in mind that there are specific venues and conferences that might be interested in between May 12th and 15th. There's going to be Agritech. It's both agrotechnology and water. On May 23rd, there's going to be EcoMotion, which is smart transportation. Middle of June, there's going to be Cyber Week. In September, there's going to be the DLD in Israel. November 12th to 15th, there's going to be HLS Cyber again. So whoever thinks of or interested in traveling to Israel, again, you can touch base either with Greg. Greg is the economic director at the consulate over here, or with us. We will be very happy to let you know more information about it and to help you if you're thinking of either traveling to Israel or if you're interested to meet with them here in the U.S. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to each of you. This has truly been a really great conversation.
I feel like a torpedo just sneezed in my head. Like the whole day has blown my mind. We're being challenged by a whole new world, aren't we? And it's not AI, AR, VR, MR. I don't think it's technology, right? I think it's our imagination, which we often picture as a light bulb flashing above our heads, right? Like this lucky stroke of insight. Eureka! Aha! It just happened. I think imagination is an instrument, like a piano, a keyboard, or a computer, that we've been given permission to play and practice. And by practicing it, we become more imaginative. It's about the power to disassociate the linear and literal and allow our minds to come up with new associations instead, which trigger new ideas. Yes, often crazy and bizarre, yet here we are in a place of total possibility, suspended into disbelief, driving at 30 billion metaphors per second. Because that's how many metaphors our brains can perceive per second. All of us here are part of the thinking, coding, designing, building of a future, our future, which will be dramatically different than anything our human species has ever encountered before. There are incredible opportunities ahead, yes, and responsibilities as humans and humanoids. I look forward to witnessing the wonders of all of your imaginations. It's been a pleasure spending the day with you. I'd like to welcome back the man who made today possible and brought us all together, the one and only Romy Bhatia. Meanwhile, thank you so much again, and may your adventures be grand. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. So we've come to our end. Behind me, you see the names of all our sponsors. This day wouldn't be possible if we didn't have the tremendous support from all our sponsors.